Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. Waiting on PJ's cutting limes for his Corona, so he will be joining us momentarily. So I'll get business taken care of, but basically tonight we're just going to talk about a bunch of topics. It's not all going to be vintage. We're going to be talking about modern market, probably comparing it to vintage a little bit, but we're kind of all over the place looking at the topics. So, there's probably some stuff that's worth, we'll probably hit something that interests you, I guess. Business end, Al and I started our premium channel on the Discord. So if you're interested in having access to us, you can join the premium membership, and it's been a pretty good few weeks so far. And we do a weekly podcast for anybody that joins, answering their questions and that sort of thing. So, if that's something that interests you, feel free to hit me up with any questions about it. And also, even if you're not interested in that, just join the Discord. There's a link down below. It's just a great community of people. So, so many different interests. There's people that know a little bit about this, a little bit about that, can answer some of your questions, that sort of thing. So, it's just fun to be part of a community that shares interests with you. So it's a good crew for sure. And that's my, he's calling me. Hold on one second. What's up, buddy? Good. Yep, there's a link. Yeah, I can. Yep, definitely. Yeah, give me 1 second. Okay, go ahead. Yep. Yep. All right. Yep, it's sent. Uh-oh. Yep. This is, I'm actually live, so this is incredible TV. You just have to click and enter studio. Hey, all right.
Okay. That's it. Okay. Let me just put my phone on mute quick. Silent. Let me see. Is this okay? Is this okay?
Yep, you sound good.
Let's put this louder.
Bad news for everybody. The Coronas were not cold.
Instead, we have a Buckle Bunny Eureka Heights brewed in Houston, Texas. So shout out to my sponsors.
Uh-oh. Al says that you're a hot mess.
that does sound about right.
So
we are live.
We are live. It's pretty informal, so we're super cool, just whatever. We're just gonna have some banter, and that's it. Cheers. So thanks for everybody joining. This is PJ. If you don't know PJ, you better get to know him. 2026 World Cup investor. So let's do a little intro to start this out. So obviously your username is somewhat descriptive of your plans, I guess, for vintage mainly, or is there, you're mixing in some modern stuff as well?
I've given away my secrets.
Yeah.
So when I started an Instagram account, for a while I was following the hobby just from my personal account. Then I thought, well, I want to start posting photos, so it'd be a bit weird if I posted photos of my kid and then Pele, my wife in a bikini, and then Cruyff. So I was like, let me make a real, a soccer related Instagram account. And you click make a new account, and then I was kind of caught off guard where it says, register your new address. And I was like, there are so many soccer related and football related. So I was like, well, I knew off the top of my head, even before I got into the hobby per se, I knew that North America was hosting the 2026 World Cup, and that would be kind of what everyone thinks is the pinnacle or biggest, thing in the hobby. So I was like, okay, let's make it 2026 investor. And then, so there we go, 2026 WC investor. That was my initial plan, was to keep everything kind of long-term, or at least till the World Cup. I haven't actually sold anything soccer related yet. I probably will have to in the next few months to pay for a grading bull that we'll talk about.
Yeah, we have, you have a large amount of cards headed in grading companies.
Actually,
way.
I quickly refresh the UPS tracking. Okay, thank God. It was delivered today at 10:14 a.m.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you how nervous you were until you see that,
So I also, for some reason, hang on, I've lost the chat. Oh, hang on. I've lost the screen. Hang on. What am I looking at?
Mitch says he loves your Scottish accent.
Scottish. I have never been more offended in my life. Oh, there we go. So I know there's third-party collectors insurance, which I've asked you about, and I think Al and maybe Court on the Discord.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I, of course, did not take that. did not take that insurance. So I took a photo of my box. Well, I sent two packages, and I was like, shit, if this goes missing, I don't even want to think about what would happen, And I sent it from a shipping store that's kind of independent, so that you can do UPS, FedEx, DHL, etc. And they ask you, I've sent her other things. I know her quite well. She's like, "Do you want to take insurance?" It's like it's a couple of dollars per 100. So I was like, hypothetically, how much would it cost to insure something for like 100K? And she looks at me like, what the hell? So she gave me $500 worth of insurance, kind of like on the house. So I was like, I'd rather, if my package went missing, I'd rather get zero from insurance than 500 in a way, because that would just be a slap.
Yeah, that's a kick in the groin, man.
Yeah, but basically, I took zero insurance, but that is it's basically my life savings almost in a way. So
right,
and hopefully a house one day. So that was very foolish. But I would definitely, on the way back from PSA, I'd rather take out third party grader. I would rather take out my own insurance, even though I know they do cover you a little bit. Also, when I get my cards back, I worked out that it's going to be like 95 pounds of weight.
Wow. Oh, wow. Because all the plastic. That's good. And that's all. Is everything like that's one order, or that's one?
So
I know you said you had 27 of them that are not in the value.
1,628 cards altogether, of which 201 went via Jamie Salt and Miami Card Club, or Ripping Wax, I think is the company.
Yes.
And then I did another 600, as in, so basically the boxes of the card savers that comes in, cardboard gold, that's like the perfect amount to put basically about 210, 220 cards in card savers. That's how I did it. I basically sent as many as card savers I had and what I could send it in. So I sent in, 200, 200, 200. And then the next batch that I only mailed a few days ago, I submitted it on the 28th, the last day of the month. I did another like 800 odd, of which 27 is express. Everything else is snail mail. And then 27 is express. So hopefully I get that express back. Well, the thing is, I don't want to sell anything, but I might have to just to help pay.
Sure.
Yeah, and then I'm also worried about up charges. Yeah, so
there's some concerns in there. Yeah. Okay. So before we get it, really dig into everything, like, when did you start buying soccer?
I'm a veteran, and by a veteran I mean I purchased my first card in May 2020.
Okay, so yeah, you are a vet for sure. Like,
I'm still wet behind the ears. And what actually happened was, so I'm from South Africa originally, and I've always been a collector of sorts my whole life. Cricket is my main sport, and I primarily collect cricket books, and in particular almanacs, yearbooks, and annuals full of the stats, like the stat Bible, basically. And you have bits and pieces of other soccer memorabilia, cricket memorabilia, rugby. And I used to have a bit of the World Cup stickers growing up. I do remember them. And then moved to America, and sports memorabilia in America is massive. Like, there's a little mall down the road that has a college football memorabilia store. That's like the most nichest thing. And they have a store at a mall, paint red. And all they do is sell like Texas A&M helmets. Basically, like, that is basically what they.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, and they're still in business. They're paying their rent. It's ridiculous. Sports memorabilia in America is massive. And I started following American sports. I actually fell out of love with soccer when I moved to America, to be honest. I started following MLS, but I fell out of love of top flight soccer just because of the money thing. I think it kind of ruined football.
Sure.
For me. Anyway, and so I started following basketball. I really like the Clippers. Baseball, I appreciate the skill set and the history, the traditions, and I just didn't know enough about American sport to get into the whole sports card thing. And Panini this year, for example, they do 16 releases for basketball. Where do you, especially for someone that's new, where do you even start? What set you buy? It's almost impossible. So I found a website called Prestige Auctions.
Yeah.
And they do a lot of memorabilia, but at the time they're also doing mystery boxes for cards.
PJ just needs to get a something running behind him with all of his sponsors. He just keeps talking about businesses. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I actually do not recommend anybody to buy mystery boxes online, because mystery boxes are basically just a way of some dealer to get rid of a shitload of junk wax. So in these boxes that I bought, you're guaranteed to have one graded card. There's some sealed wax, and then a couple of, it could be like 500 cards of loose cards. So the loose cards are basically worth nothing. The sealed wax is worth a couple of bucks.
Right.
And then the graded card, so I have a couple of Michael Jordan graded cards, which is great. But when you have a PSA 6 from his 7th year, you find out that quick is worth less than the cost of graded now. So anyway, I bought 20 of these random boxes. I'm not going to tell you exactly how much I spent because my wife is around the corner, but I spent about, call it, I don't know, $1,500, $2,000, who knows. And the first box that I opened it, and there was a box of soccer. It was a hanger pack of select 2017, 2018.
Okay.
And I was like, wow, soccer. I can't believe, I didn't know they made soccer cards. And I started looking into it, and this particular box at the time was going for $200 on eBay. So I was like, wait, are you telling me this one box of soccer cards is worth more than the whole, the graded card, the graded Michael Jordan? And I started looking into more soccer cards, and I was like, wow, holy shit, this is like,
this is what you expected, right?
Yeah. And then, so I didn't actually follow that much current soccer. I keep up to date with top of the logs and who's but if you ask me the latest rookie players, and I probably wouldn't be able to tell you anything, to be honest.
Right.
I started going into the Panini albums. The World Cups were like what I really knew. And I try to go back as soon as possible, like, or as early as possible. So 1970. And then I started getting into more of the Calcitori, and then basically went from there, trying to go as vintage as possible. And, you know, Gary V, I follow him a lot. And he was always, especially when it comes to sports cards, he's always like, stick to what you know. So I don't know basketball. I don't know baseball. I know soccer, but especially I know soccer from the 90s and the early 2000s when I played a lot of Championship Manager, what became Football Manager. I played the game religiously, like thousands and thousands of hours. That's the reason why my academics, went out the window. So I was quite proficient in 90s soccer. So when I started buying, I was like, okay, I know Mbappe he was hotshot youngster at the time, but I was like, geez, I don't really know anything about the current players. Let me stick to the vintage. I'll call 1995 vintage. So sure. I try to go as many players, the big players of that era, and as I knew who Pele was, of course. So I try to get as many Peles as possible, especially from the 1970 World Cup. While people were paying $100 for a Paul Pogba Prism 2014 card, I was buying the Pele 1970s for like $50. So that was,
that's incredible.
And then I started the Instagram page, met a lot of people, of course, met a lot of good people, and some people that I speak to every day. And now, obviously, I'm in the Discord group.
Yeah.
And we chatted. Well, we have a nice community there. It feels like everybody's friends. And even though I've never met anybody in person, of course, it's really cool. And, doing the vintage, like I really, really enjoy the historical side of things, doing the research. So that's why I kind of steered towards the vintage. The main reason why I went into the vintage is because I do not follow current soccer, really.
Right. So you were more comfortable with stuff. You were more comfortable with what you knew. So yeah, that makes sense.
Just a quick on the prices for modern at the time. I just couldn't fathom, like, you look at Pele. We'll use Pele as the grandfather, but at the time, 6 months ago, the only guy to win 3 World Cups, countless, like the greatest player of all time. And I always use Paul Pogba. I don't want to say anything bad about it, but like his cards are more expensive than Pele. I was like, how is that possible? All modern players that haven't won anything, Paul Pogba, I guess, won a World Cup, but like, players that have played 1 season or half a season or 2 seasons, have hardly scored a goal. Their cards are going for thousands. And I just couldn't, you had great vintage players, the Moores, the Charltons, the Eusebios, going for nothing. Guys that have won it all, won multiple Ballon d'Ors. So here we are.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably a similar story to a lot of us, getting into vintage for sure. It's just, it's hard to grasp how, modern collectors, are willing to fork out all that money. And that kind of transition, I mean, just in comparison, it's not even like I'm not judging what you spend your money on, by all means do it. But at the same time, like, I just feel like there's better value out there for me. So I'll go that direction. But
absolutely. Well, when it comes to vintage too, what drew me in, so I really enjoy the historical, when I'm researching a player, I always read their Wikipedia and I try to read as many articles as possible. So I enjoy the historical side, but also the cards. This is just a cheap card, but like, they're all pieces of art, in my opinion. I love the colors. I love the print. I love artwork. It just really, really amazing. Like, there are pieces of art. A lot of people for our generation, maybe, again, Gary Vee always says, like, not everybody appreciates a $10 million Picasso, but some guy that's 20 or 20, or, a little bit younger, they might be like, wow, this LeBron James, this is just, that's their art, for Picasso. So,
and it's cool that, every era has like its own distinct like feel, so like the 60s from the UK has this very specific feel, and 20s in Spain, just all these different eras. It's like, it's cool to see that, in my opinion, and just appreciate the differences of all the cultures and that sort of thing. So
Behind you, I can see you have a great wall, by the way, and you have a couple of iconic pieces blowing up there, which is really, really cool.
Oh yeah, those are, it's nice to look at that every day. It's just, it's fun to look at old soccer cards. So may as well have them on the wall. All right, so let's kind of get into a few of the topics. I asked you for a few topics. We ended up with about 40. So we're gonna try to get through what we can. And I'm cool. Like, hey, I'm open for the night. So if we go till 2 a.m., hey, what the hell? But
I might get a bit peckish later. But Rebecca,
yeah, no, I'm teasing. Just whenever you need to go, just let me know. And so, well, let's how about this? Mitch just asked a question. PJ, what's your all-time favorite card or sticker?
Wow. So I do like the Pele Aquarela. I think, well, just the artwork of the blue background, which is, I assume, was like a green screen at the time, or a blue screen, just a backdrop with the white border. That is probably, it's just such a simple look. It's so clean, and what I like about it is also Pele's pose. So that was taken, I believe, after the World Cup as kind of like a tribute to the team that won the 58 World Cup. So Pele, he has this like confident, like not cocky, but like confident, like, he's 17 or he maybe just turned 18, like on top of the world. That is probably my favorite card. I mean, it kills me to say that in a way because I do have so many favorites. I also have a couple of Brugueras from 1942. Zamora, I think Ricardo Zamora is one, and there's another two players which names I can't quite recall. And I just love the artwork because it's very similar to like a Tintin comics, those old school Tintin comics.
Mm-hmm.
But if you had to like hold a gun to my head, I really like that Pele.
Good answer. Yeah, those are, I like those also. The maybe Telmo Zara might have been one. He had one from that set.
There was a guy whose surname started with a G. I don't want to tell the wrong thing.
That's all right. Let's not worry about that. All right. So we kind of were talking a little bit about what drew you to vintage. So I guess on the Discord, it was probably a week or so ago, you kind of had a little bit of a soapbox moment, and you're talking about manufactured scarcity and the modern cards. So let's kind of go over that a little bit. I mean, I've always had that thought, and I know other people have, brought it up in the Discord at times as well. And, I probably didn't really verbalize it, but that was what you said is very close to like my thoughts. So why don't you just kind of give a quick gloss over on that?
Sure. So I've been having this, this is a rant. I've been having this problem. I do a lot of research every day, basically, but I've been helping Mark from Football Cards or Football Cards Net on Instagram, and his YouTube page is Football Cards. We do the top 25 MVP, most valuable players every month in terms of value. So I do a lot of research, and it kind of kills me when you have these modern cards that are not necessarily valuable, I think, but they have what I called manufactured scarcity, where it's a 1 of 1, a 1 of 5, a 1 of 10, a 1 of 20, a 1 of 25, a 1 of 100, and they command such incredible resale prices, which is just unbelievable. I look at this example of David Beckham, right? We all know David Beckham. He was a great player. Well, he was an iconic player. He's probably not going to go down as one of the modern greats. He was a good player, but he's not like, the top, probably not in the top 50 best players of all time. Maybe not even the top, maybe not in the top 100. And he just signed a 3-year deal with Panini to do, merchandising, memorabilia.
Right.
So recently he's had 3 of his number to 10 booklets, which is a new thing now, I guess, by Panini, where it's like a stick-on auto. It's not, it's a little booklet, David Beckham, and signed. And they went for like 10 grand, 12 grand, 15 grand. 1 out of 10. And everyone's like, wow, it's 1 out of 10. It's so rare. He just signed a 3-year deal with Panini. How many 1 out of 10 booklets is he going to have in 3 years? The next World Cup, he's going to have, there'll be the David Beckham collection. And these are going for 10, 15, 20 grand. But you can have what I call market scarcity, where market scarcity would just be like the 1958 Alifa Bolaget, the Pele. There's only so many graded. There's maybe only double that amount that exists, maybe 150, 200 max that exists. So now that is market scarcity. It's maybe a bad example. I guess you could probably still pick up a raw copy for the same price that you pay for a David Beckham numbered card. I mean, what are people thinking? Like, if you're prepared to spend that money and put it on your wall forever as your piece of art, that is great. But cheap as David Beckham, I mean, he's not going to win any Ballon d'Ors. He's not going to win, he's retired, right? He's not going to, I don't know how else his value can go up, if you know what I mean. Like, it is.
Yeah. So that's the thing, and especially like, I mean, just talking autographs, I think that's a big one. Like, so I'm going to use ice hockey as an example, because that's used to be like kind of where I focused. And like Wayne Gretzky autograph card. Well, he is arguably the greatest player of all time in hockey. And I was just looking up like some of the cards I used to have to see what they were worth now. And there's autographed cards from 2002, 2003. And I think at that time, the cost was $250 to $300. I looked one up. It sold for $400. So 18 years later, that card has barely gone up.
Yeah.
And why is that? Because just because he retired doesn't mean he stopped signing autographs. So as long as he played in the NHL, which could have been 20 years, he's still got another like twice as much time to be signing autographs for these card companies. So like that kind of stuff just doesn't stop. And
Diego Maradona obviously passed away at the end of last year. Rest in peace. I'm pretty sure Panini or Topps or someone has a vault sitting with, could be 50, could be 100, could be 200, could be 300 sheets of Maradona autographs. There'll be 1 of 10, 1 of 20 Maradona all-time legend at the 2022 World Cup Prism, the 2026 World Cup, the 2030, the 2034, forever. There'll be Diego Maradona, and they will command such great prices. This is another thing that bugs me.
We'll be getting to that.
Is the on-card autos versus is that okay? We'll wait then.
Yeah, but so like basically so yes, like I was talking to Brett, who's LA card collector, and he was saying that he counted for Holland. He was just using that as an example, and he said that there was 64 different Holland rookies, and that's taking into account parallels. So the 1 of 5, the 1 of whatever, each one of those he counted differently. Now let's say there's, let's just say there's 15 sets of like how many cards from each of those sets was made. And, and it's legit. I understand. But at the same time, the demand is so much greater for these new players. And I think we're preaching to the choir a little bit because we're all in vintage and we all agree that but yeah, it's hard to wrap your head around just the quantities. And,
well, that's another comparison why I prefer vintage, is because if you look at any vintage player, even someone from the 90s, call it, I don't know, Rivaldo. He has one sticker. That is it. And then the next day he has a sticker and a card. That is it. Sometimes if a player in a popular league, they'll have a sticker and a card for the league for his rookie year.
Yeah.
You look at Haaland, he'll have the Topps Chrome, whatever, refractor, but then there's the gold refractor, the blue refractor, the green number to 10, the green number to 25, the gold. Like, where do you draw the line?
And on top of it, they have like Topps Now. So everybody is buying all these different Topps Nows throughout his rookie seasons. He might have 5 different Topps Nows, and like people consider all of those rookies, or is it just the first one, or, like how does that work? And the market to me is just so like just convoluted. I don't really know like what and which is fine. I think everybody just figures out what they want, but or what they consider rookies and that sort of thing. But
what also bugs me is that so I don't actually own any Haalands, I'll be honest. And I thought I missed the boat. Definitely, I'm not paying like $1,000 for a raw card or whatever. But I would regard his Salzburg sticker as the main rookie, right? Because that was like the first thing basically that came out. But now you have Panini, because it's such a pop, they reprinted it. Like that bugs me that they did that, because it's kind of like how in the baseball with who's the guy that he was playing for Seattle at the time, Kenny Griffey Jr. Right? That was the most popular. He was the most popular player. Like I want to say 1989, 90.
That was his rookie, 89. Yeah.
But there's this whole like that's kind of half why the industry kind of collapsed a little bit with the junk wax era was apparently they like it's top secret. It kind of leaked as how many of those cards were printed, but they just overprinted that. And I mean, I think that was.
Yeah, the junk wax was just because the market was the demand was so great at that point in time. So every company was just printing a shit ton of everything because they're like, people are going to keep buying it. And
I hope Panini realize now. I mean, I would say Panini would be the biggest player, and then Topps would be second. Am I right in saying that?
I don't know because I don't deal with modern much anymore. So
just in terms of licensing, I know Panini obviously have the World Cup,
probably,
but the NBA and blah 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 blah. But like, if I was Panini, we look obviously America. Panini's now an American company, but we live in a capitalist society, unfortunately. Sometimes, like there's nothing wrong with making $1 billion a year. Panini should just say, you know what, we can make $1 billion a year profit or whatever. That is sweet. They don't need to make $2 billion. Like they need to kind of that's the biggest trade secret of all time. You'll never know how much they print, and that is what makes our hobby. There'd be no resale market if we knew, okay, they printed 1 million LeBron Jameses or Pele's or whatever. But I hope they realize, listen, let's not screw it up like we did it in the late 80s, early 90s, and almost collapse the industry. Let's kind of, let's not be greedy.
Yeah, that's tough because when you are a business, the answer is to make as much money as you can while you can, but there's got to be maybe a way that you keep this cash cow going long term, as opposed to just hammering it for the next 5 years.
That's true.
And so that's definitely something that I think we all hope happens.
I have no problem with them putting out more product if it was kind of like basketball, how maybe Prism and Donruss are like the main, or Prism, and then there's Donruss, and then now you see, I'm not too familiar with basketball. Then there's hoops, there's I don't know, classic something. There's this, there's this. So if soccer could, if they wanted to release other sets or other brands, so not just not print like a bazillion Prism cards.
Yeah, I think that's what they're going to do now, right? Instead of just printing a ton of that one set, they're just going to come up with more and more sets. So you'll end up with 20 Panini sets.
Yeah, I mean,
or 30 Panini sets instead. And, people, it's a way of tricking everybody, right? Like they're still going to print just as many cards as they probably did, but it's going to be across 30 sets instead of.
If numbered cards and parallels are a way to get people back into the hobby, and collectors that are maybe someone like yourself, or maybe L's vintage, L, that lived through the junk wax era. And, I think a lot of people would have got hurt there really badly in terms of financial losses if they invested, quote unquote. So, I mean, on numbered cards, so from, if that aspect, if it's to get people back into the hobby, that I get. I'm okay with that. But at the end of the day, like I still tell people, they're not printing more 1958 Pele's. They're not printing more 1974 Platinis, or, so that's why for me, it's just so much easier to get into vintage, or,
100%. And so I was just wanted to kind of follow up that where you're talking about the manufactured scarcity, and then we have the actual, market scarcity. the one thing I wanted to say, and I've seen this being mentioned in the Discord, and I've heard other people talking about it in other Discords and on YouTube shows and that sort of thing, and that's the pop reports for soccer. And so I know you're doing a lot of work and just tabulating and that sort of thing. So why don't you just kind of say what you've been doing, and then I'm gonna follow it up with with the warning. So
yeah, I would tell people. Well, I think I'll let you say the warning because I think I know what you're going to say. So what I've been doing, I've been keeping track for the last few months of the total number of graded cards or soccer cards by PSA. The reason why I'm using PSA is because they're the biggest and because the information is really, it's a lot easier to find the information. Let me just get my spreadsheet open here. So I started keeping track of this information on the 3rd of November. So at the time, hopefully everyone pay attention because these numbers are not going to go up on the screen. But there was 27 million graded cards by PSA as of the 3rd of November. And soccer accounted for 0.23% of that. 62,453 cards, which is not very much at all.
No.
Considering baseball is 16 million, football is 4 million, basketball is 3 million, golf is 154,000, boxing is 115,000, not very much. So then fast forward 6 weeks to the 16th of December, soccer had increased from 0.23% of the overall graded cards to 0.28%. Now you're going to tell me, PJ, that is a very tiny increase. That is nothing. But that is actually a massive increase. That means out of all the cards graded in that 6 weeks period, soccer accounted for over 3.24% of graded cards, which is huge.
Yeah.
That means soccer increased their historical, PSA pop numbers by 11.5 times.
Yeah.
Not 11.5%, 11.5 times.
So in that 1 month, they had graded 11 times more for that period of time compared to normal.
Absolutely. So they went from 62,000 to 78,000 in the 1 month. Then, the 1st of January, which is only 2 weeks later, soccer jumped to 84,000, which means it was 0.3% of graded cards. 5th of February, it was 0.34% of graded cards. So to give you an indication of how big soccer became, between the 1st of January and the 5th of February, soccer was graded 14,000 times. But boxing and wrestling, MMA, and boxing has a very big vintage. It's a lot of history. Was graded only 800 times. Golf 600 times. Hockey 9,000 times. So soccer is consistently beating hockey at the moment by double. 1 month it has been times 5 the number of hockey graded cards. It's at least double every month, which is huge. So soccer, baseball, football, and basketball will always be like the top three, pretty much. Baseball has been graded 16 million times, football 4.9, basketball 4. But soccer will quickly become the 4th biggest sport on PSA, which is huge. And then up to the 3rd of March, soccer was 0.37%, so 108,000 cards total graded.
So that went from 0.23 to 0.38 in about 4 months.
Correct. And then to give you, so basically baseball dropped about 1.5%. I want to say market share. We'll call it market share. Football dropped about 1%. Basketball increased. Trading cards actually had the biggest increase. So, Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, like collectible trading cards, they actually had the biggest increase. And then hockey, golf, boxing all dropped. And soccer would probably have the second biggest increase, which is huge. Now, these numbers won't be 100% accurate, and that is because some soccer initially was graded under other or miscellaneous.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's difficult to say, some of these were bulk orders, which means they could have been processed or, sent in 9 months ago. Some of them would be express. So, it's not accurate, but it does give a good, kind of idea of what the market is doing.
So like, I don't think we've hit the huge bump yet, like for soccer, like in the grading, because so many people sent those in with those value submissions, and they're in July for those.
Exactly.
So I think that we're going to have to wait until probably fall before we have a good idea of like how much soccer has been submitted, even to get through the end of the year, right? Like, I don't think, I bet by the end of 2021, we'll kind of be at the end of 2020 submissions of value.
In the next, in the next month, soccer will overtake boxing, wrestling, and MMA overall. And give it 5 months, soccer will overtake golf for sure. But soccer still, hockey is at 1.4 million. So soccer at the moment only 108,000. But
so after they get all the submissions from us in March, then of 2021, we'll have surpassed hockey by a mile.
If you're looking at this in a year's time,
I mean, just PJ's submissions will get us past there. So, so that's just a show for all of us, like just how massive soccer is. I'm sorry, Al just asked us. L Basic, any idea on the pop count increase just for vintage? Were you able to separate that, or were you looking at the totals?
Kind of important. I mean, no, I don't have those.
Yeah, that's a lot of digging probably. So
I assume that most would be modern stuff. I mean, even if you just look at Panini Prism 2014, I think Mbappe has a population of maybe 6,000 or like 3, 4, 5, 6, definitely a few thousand. Ronaldo, Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe. Oh, sorry, Mbappe for 2018, and then the other 3 for 2014. They probably count like a 20% or 25% of the total graded soccer cards.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
So, like, if we have to think that from 2000, let's just say from 2000 up, I would have to think it's safe to say that we're at 85 to 90% at least.
Absolutely. I mean, I was posting for a while some random pop reports on Instagram. It's still on my channel under stories if you go to pop reports. And I was looking at Platini, Cruyff, the Cruyff Van der Hout had, it's on his rookie. It's like considered his rookie, but we know it's on his rookie. 17 was the 17. Platini,
awesome.
Platini, his rookie is like 8. There was like, what? That is ridiculous. Like,
yeah.
I mean, Pele, I think someone said out of all the Pele rookies, the total grade was 500. Well,
yeah.
I mean, that is insanely low. If you look at, there's no doubt that soccer is the most popular sport in the world. It is the world's global game. The World Cup is like 10 times bigger than the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. There's 2.5 billion fans around the world. The World Cup, these other sports don't have a World Cup really. But there is a basketball World Cup, and the baseball has the World Classic.
It won't be that big though. There's just no way. Yeah, I mean, there's like it's like a culture for soccer, and there's just that passion and that love and that connection that's gonna always be there because it's been built up over the years. This is not something that's just manufactured. It's legit, and so yeah, I mean. Your numbers are, I've heard them before, but every time I hear them, they just startle me. It's just like,
it's insane.
Yeah. And so I am going to give my be careful of pop reports warning because, Al and I have talked about this a few times, and it's just, a lot of these stuff has not been graded just because there was really no point in grading these things. So, I hear a lot of people mentioning that, this card only has a pop of 5. Well, yeah, but it's not as rare as you think it is. So don't be like blowing your wad on something because there's only 5, because when this whole thing goes through, like when they get through March of 2021, that number could be materially different. It could be, maybe there was only 5, but there'll be 20. So you don't have one you don't have 20% of the graded cards. You now have 5% of the graded cards. So
that eBay listing where it says pop 1 of 1 or, you know, none higher, that might be a little bit different.
Yeah. Now, like, learn the ones that are truly rare. And, you know, if you can find those, it's just a matter of learning what's truly rare and what's just not been graded. But I think you're safe 2000 and earlier that you're never going to have cards that there's thousands graded.
Also, I like stickers too. And just because it's, I don't know, I like the World Cup stickers. And what's nice about stickers is I think it's very difficult to keep in good condition. And the whole nature is obviously you're meant to be stuck down, right?
Sure.
Even stickers from, I know we've Lukaku and I think even Kevin De Bruyne, their rookie stickers are incredibly hard to find because, well, Belgium's first a small country, a small soccer country, even though they, I think, rated number 1 in the world. But like it's incredibly difficult. So I think while a lot of soccer cards, you know, are not necessarily rare, to have something in a high grade will always be, even like a World Cup sticker from the 90s, 94, 98, while they're very common, if you have a 10, you know, a 10, even a 9 sometimes, like that would still be, I think, carry some weight. And then, you know, you say warning of be careful of the pop report. So like 1970 World Cup, most of these diehard collectors, Italy and in England, they have zero interest in grading their cards. The 1970 World Cup is the holy grail for Panini, like album collectors, right? And Pele would obviously be the biggest goat,
sure,
etc. So just because there's only been, I don't know, less than 100 Peles graded, don't think it's the most rarest card in the world, because it's definitely not. Correct. I mean, still buy it if you think it's a good price, of course, and I have quite a bit, but they're not extremely rare. Every single Panini collector in Italy and in England has one. And while I say they have no interest in grading them yet, if those prices were to skyrocket,
guess what's going to happen?
Exactly. Everyone will be digging out that Pele because they know they can sell one card and buy a new car, pay off the house, take their family on vacation, etc.
Yep. Ray just said, how much more do you see the Cruyff and Platini pop report increasing? I'll be honest with you. I think the Cruyffs, we'll see a decent amount just because I know that there's probably a bunch of us that have submitted them. But when I say a decent amount, like if there was 17 before, maybe we get to 100.
I mean, I submitted 12, I think, or maybe even more. So
so like, I don't think it's going to be like where all of a sudden we have 1,000. Like, no. So like, and Platini, it's the same thing. Like people just didn't really submit them because even until recently, nobody really cared about the 74 Platini. Yeah. I mean, not anybody, but I mean, like the masses didn't care. And, you know, because everybody's so worried about the truly top GOAT players, you know, and he's just on that next tier. So people are getting there, you know, they've moved past Cruyff, you know, they're moving on to the next guys, and it's just going to slowly and surely keep building. So we're going to see them raise. But I mean, if you're going to compare them to what they're at now, it's going to go up hundreds of percents. But that still doesn't mean that it's going to be material in comparison to the demand for these cards. Even
if there were, say, 200 Patinis graded, which would going from 5 or 10 to 200 is a huge jump. But 200 in their greatest, like Platini won 3 Ballon d'Ors. He was probably like the best player in the world in the 80s. Cruyff, I think Cruyff is the bigger GOAT than Pele and Maradona, but that's for another debate. He also won 3 Ballon d'Ors. Like, that is huge. Imagine, like, you know, Mbappe, Haaland, all these guys that are going for like 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000, they've won a combined 0 Ballon d'Ors. You know? Yeah, it's crazy.
It's mind-numbing, honestly. And so, yeah, it's definitely something that we just got to be aware of, that you're not buying it based on that it's only 1 of 5. And, you know, just don't be too, you know, I guess, aggressive in that. But regardless, I mean, and we say if there's 200 Platinis, well, there's more than 200 people in our Discord that want a Platini. Mm-hmm. So, and that's one little pocket of this hobby. So, and
And then if you think again, most of them will probably be removed from an album or have maybe surface damage. So if you haven't have a PSA 5, it's definitely a PSA 10, but that you could write, it's an open checkbook almost in a way.
Yep, exactly. So, and that's the thing, like I'm buying pieces of crap right now and I'm happy with it. Just, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, this is great. Like I have one, and that's kind of where I'm at. Like I bought and this is probably about as modern as I'm getting anymore, but a 95 Copa Ronaldo, and is had paper loss on the back and everything, and I was just like stoked that I got it, and it was like just to have it, because there's probably only going to be 500 of those maximum in the world, and it's just like, if I have the worst one, I still have one. So. But all right, let's go on to one of the topics you selected, the on-card autos versus the sticker autos. And I think you kind of addressed it a little bit. With those stickers, like there's probably 1 billion of them at Panini or Topps. Is that kind of what you were going to say? Or
So I have a couple of Beckenbauer and Muller. I think Beckenbauer and Muller were very generous with their time.
Yes.
Throughout history. Also, Beckenbauer probably has the nicest signature, I think. I have a few, like, it's not, if it's Beckenbauer's rookie, it's the same picture, but they used it for 2 years, I think.
Yes.
So I think mine is actually second year, but it's a perfect pen signature. And it cost me, I actually got it, I bought a for $500. It was like a bulk, lot, and that wasn't even one of the main. That was just like an extra card. So in a way, it cost like nothing. But
bonus.
Like you can buy a Beckenbauer auto for like $100.
Sure.
Maybe even less, right? And I look at this and I'm like, wow, it's just so much history. Like I think firstly, how did this card come to me? It's 60 years old. It's in decent condition. Like, how did it? Who got that auto? Was it some kid? Did he save up his pocket money? Did his dad go outside the training ground? Did he meet Beckenbauer in a restaurant? Like, so much potential history. You can write, you can write a book about the card, and it's worth $100. Beckenbauer, by the way, he came first, second, and third in World Cups as a player and a manager, which is like ridiculous. He won the Ballon d'Or twice as a defender. That is ridiculous, right? He's like one of the goatiest goats of all time. Also, off the FIFA, we work with FIFA, and he, World Cup committees and bids and blah blah blah. You can buy this for $100. But now, watch, in the 2022 World Cup, there'll be a Beckenbauer legend throwback auto. It'll be a stick-on auto, and it'll go for like $5,000. I cannot fathom. Like I personally I despise stick-on autos. I'm not sure if you feel as strongly as I do, but like, it seems so tacky. It seems so cheap, especially when I have no problem with these 1 of 1 or 1 of 5 if it's actually on card auto going for a premium. But when it's I just think it's such a cash grab by Panini when they just blindly, this guy. I've seen photos of how people sign. They just sign. They don't even look at the thing. And then that's not, like, I don't know, man. It just makes me so upset.
Yeah, the stickers are, so back in the day, it was just the logistics of everything. Like between, like, they had to have the cards printed. Mm-hmm. Then they had to send the cards out to these players to sign. Then they had to get the cards back, and then they had to get the cards inserted into packs.
True.
And it was the card companies getting lazy, and they didn't want to have to do that all the time. And there was a ton of times where you'd get a redemption card in the pack because the player hadn't submitted their cards by the time they were making the boxes to sell. So that was their way to try to prevent, so people would get the actual card in the packs. It was easier for them. But I agree 100%. Like, it's not, like, it's cool to have the card and go, the player held this card and signed it.
Exactly. I think back in they also had to have a Panini representative there to make sure it's kind of like well, off,
Well, they got a little lax with that at some point.
because some of those autos, and then when you have it when like the pen mark goes off the little pad,
The sticker, yeah.
so cheap. Like, okay, I'll give you an example. I purchased, I found a guy on, I don't know, online. He was selling some auto cards, and he had like 45 cards, all autographed, and he wanted like 80 pounds. So I was like, okay, sweet, that's $100. I'll pay you $100. There were 2 Alan Shearers, 1 Rooney, like Peter Schmeichel, like all the biggest names. Like I just got some of the cheap ones left over that I haven't even sleeved them yet, which makes me cringe sometimes. But like, I have a Wayne Rooney rookie card signed, £2.50 or $2.50. Like, unbelievable. That's ridiculous. He has a Paulo Dybala, that's signed. Well, you can't really see it.
Yeah.
Signed by him. This is worth nothing, really. You could buy this like this is so cheap. But if it was a Prism stick-on Dybala 1 out of 10 manufactured scarcity, oh, now it's $1,000. Like, are people ridiculous? Like, I don't know, man.
No, I agree. It's when you tally up all the autographs of all the numbered cards, like that's truly what you're buying, right? Like an autographed card. Like that's what it ends up being. But the market has decided what it's doing with those, and I don't think we're stopping it, and I don't think we're reasoning with it. It's just going to be the way it is, but it's just that's not where the value is in my eyes.
There's some Panini Eminence, I think, is the brand. They have like really nice gold, like on card orders. Those look really cool.
Yeah.
If I have to give it to Panini, that Eminence is really cool. I think that set, or to buy a box of Eminence is like $5,000.
It's a shit ton. Yeah.
But other than that, stick on. Don't give me. I've actually traded away or given away all my stick on autos. So I just have no time for them.
Mike asks, and on the point of Europeans not having interest in grading does that also have an impact on the sale of graded cards? Basically, has the interest in purchasing graded cards shifted outside North America?
Well, in my opinion, in my 9 months of experience in the hobby, I would think that it is growing in the UK. Definitely. I think of all my followers on Instagram, I think the UK is probably the biggest outside of the USA. And people are, but see, at the moment, it is difficult for people in Europe and the UK to grade cards.
Exactly.
The Brexit, and as well as Europe, there's a new, because of Brexit, there's a new import taxes and duties are very, very expensive. I know people that have had problems having the cards graded in the States and then shipping them back, even though, you're getting your own card back. So you're not, you're paying for a service to encapsulate. So you're paying for a cheap service, but your card becomes more expensive.
So they want to tax you on that. And
card that you already own, but it's quite weird. I think, I'd like to think that I always used to say that whoever out of the big three, PSA, SEC, and BGS, opened up a branch or location in mainland Europe mainly, they would totally dominate the market. Even if they don't have to do grading there, but if they can do some technology like 3D, take a photo or image of that graders in the United States, I'm not sure if that is impossible.
Yeah, AI. Yeah, like do some sort of AI thing where, they could scan it there and then have somebody, they just print out the grade in Europe and slab it. And
so I think it is growing, but it's still definitely not yet. Like as soon as Europe and the UK wake up, it is growing. As we've seen.
Oh, there's no question.
The Discord group and Instagram, the YouTube. There's a lot of Europeans, but the whole graded card thing it is growing. It is definitely growing.
And it's just a matter of I think the interest is there for grading, especially with the younger collectors. Mm-hmm. So definitely in the modern, we're seeing it. Probably going to see it a lot more. And there's some comments in here about Golden and everything, and Golden's saying that there's a ton of people bidding from international bidders on soccer items. So and everything they sell is graded. So
Correct.
I think that just having the cards graded, I think that a lot of collectors and investors are going to feel more comfortable because they don't get to see the card condition. So just having somebody else giving their opinion, that's worth something to them. Like, especially when you're buying stuff overseas, whether it's Europe from the US or vice versa.
I think Golden, I think I listened to that same, he goes on these Instagram lives, gives a state of the market. And I think he said 60% of the bidders on soccer are from Europe and Asia, which is amazing because you'd think like America is the biggest market. And at the moment it is. Like that is so huge. I always tell people too that as soccer fans or as investors in the hobby, we should all be hoping that China qualifies for the 2022 or 2026 World Cup. 2026 World Cup, they're expanding to 48 teams, if you're not familiar. Each continent will get extra 3 or 4 spots. So it'll be a little bit easier for those kind of second tier nations to qualify. But like Japan, Korea, who already have a history of collecting, Pokemon and anime and manga or whatever, all that kind of stuff. If China can get into it with their like 1.3 billion people, oh my God, it is.
Yeah. And I mean, China's a huge collecting culture for basketball. Like there's like a huge market in China for basketball cards. So if it transitions to soccer, look out.
I've actually picked up on eBay a few, I thought, undervalued items from China, from Chinese sellers. And I think that people will maybe a bit cautious to buy things from China because of, they'd be like, oh, what if I get scammed, or maybe it's fake. But I have a few things from Chinese sellers. So that's promising.
I have something coming from Hong Kong right now. So
actually, there's a few big Hong Kong sellers. So
okay, let's see here. Before we get back to our topics, George Best versus Platini, which one is better for long-term value? That's an interesting one.
I mean, I think we've seen George Best, his 1964, is it Barrett? No, go for quite a bit recently. But I think George Best is probably the more famous player, or more infamous, definitely. Oh, actually, Platini, he's had a bit of a great career.
Collecting wise, he's not quite at the level of George Best right now.
No one has even heard of him.
Like, I mean, I think the UK push for Best is probably makes him a little safer. They both have one rookie card, so it's not like one is going to have a ton more than the other. I mean, I think there's definitely more Best rookies out there than Platini's.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the drive for just playing for Manchester United, that's a huge driver because fans all over the world follow them.
Having said that, you could probably pick up a Platini raw for cheaper than what you could for a Best.
Absolutely.
But maybe over the long run, your Best would probably be the best return. Well,
yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I think I have those two very similar. And I think probably percentage that they increase in value will be similar in my opinion. But that doesn't really answer your question. Sorry.
I always tell people, I said, listen, please don't ask me what card to buy. Or can have because if I had a magic lamp or a golden, magic ball, I would. I don't know. I
would buy a Platini because I have more George Best. So that's kind of where my brain is. But that's all. It's all just relative and it's all just personal choice. I don't think there's some great difference between the two. So let's get into the most exciting topic. Grading company price hikes. So there's been a lot going on recently. So basically Beckett, they shot their prices up. Used to be $40 or $50 and you could get it back within, let's say, a month. And now it's up to $100 or more for that same service. PSA, they everybody heard that March 1st the hike was going to go up, and it did. So everything went up, 100% or $100 as you got into the higher services. SGC, they've had a couple of bumps over the last 6 months. They went from $10 to 15, I believe, and then to 25 just recently for their base grading. And we can get into the other surcharges from them in a little bit, but do you think it's really going to affect the amount of cards that are getting submitted?
Not at all. I think if you look at the PSA bulk rate, it went from, depending on the vintage, it went from 10. Can I have another beer, please? Corona, please. Thank you. I love you.
Should be cold by now.
And lime, if you can. Thank you. So it went from 10, 10, 12, and 15 to 20, 20, 25. I mean, I honestly don't think, and they say the increase is to stop people from sending in. That is total bullshit. That's just they can increase their revenue, their costs stay the same, they're going to double their revenue, whatever. Like if the price went to $50 a card, then I'd be like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't send that extra 100 cards. But to go up $5, $8, $10 a card, that is not really. And then if you look, the Express went from 75 to 150, I think. Is that true?
I think so.
I'm going to be in trouble, trust me. Like I don't think that's going to. I mean, I would love to see. Again, we would never know. But like internally, I would love to see how much stuff they're going to get between the 1st of March and like the 1st of April compared to a. Thanks so much. You're my best friend. I love you so much.
These cards better be worth money.
They will be.
So, there we go.
Yeah, I think that might limit like maybe 5% of the cards that that were getting submitted may not be submitted now, and those would be like the very low end cards that people just like, I'm grading it because it was $10. Like,
to be honest, the only thing that would stop me or less is a little bit of modern, like.
Yeah, I agree.
Even though I'm all in on the vintage, I do have a bit of modern, but like not really high end stuff. So it'll be stuff like, I don't know, what's the example? Like, what is this? This is a Mbappe. I don't know. Panini. I just like the sticker. I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
3.5. But like for $15, I would grade 10, for example, each. But like, I'm probably not going to pay 25. I know. I'd probably grade more if.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just the ones that they're not going to get, but they're making so much money on the rest. So it's like, I mean, they're going to have their investment paid for by the end of the year, to be honest.
Oh, for sure. And then don't even talk about the whole up charges and the insurance, insurance costs. That is, make me very angry.
Yeah, that's so. I'm going to talk about SGC for a minute. I love SGC. I've used SGC for most of my pre-war cards for a long time because I just love how the cards look in those holders. It's, in my opinion, it's the best holders. And we all have our preference, and I get it. I just love how that black frames the cards, especially those smaller cards. I just think it looks great. And I went to the National a few years ago. This was probably 5-6 years ago, actually. And I went to grade with them, and they're like, we need to charge you for research. And I said, you're going to charge me for you to do your job? Like,
Yeah.
Like, it just confused me. Like, so I was just like, and it was at the National, so I kind of gave them like the pass, like, okay, yeah, I get it. Like, you probably don't have all the resources you need here, so there's a little extra effort to look into these cards that you don't know much about. Okay. So then fast forward to this week, and I get a call, 2 calls. I don't answer because I don't know who it is. And then I get an email saying, when can we call you? So I'm like, oh shit, like, what's going on here?
No, it's actually incredibly difficult to get hold. You can never call these companies yourself.
Right.
So actually call you, it's either good news, I think, or terrible.
Yeah, well, I think we knew where this was headed in the first place. So it's rarely good news. So I just figured they were calling to tell me like, hey, we got to charge you for these cutouts, because that's part of their sales is like, hey, if you're sending in cards that aren't typical size cards, we have to manually cut out these inserts so that the card fits in there properly. And I was aware of that. So I knew that I was going to get hit with a bunch of them. I made sure to send cards that were only in their database, and which means that they've graded them before. And so they told me of the 34 cards, only 7 do not require substantial research.
Oh my God.
From them. And that's just, okay, you've already graded these, so you've done the research. Well, yeah, but over the course of the years, notes have been lost and this sort of thing. So now you're charging me because you are poor at record keeping. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm very stubborn. Like when I feel like I'm just like, there's some smoke getting blown up my ass, and, it's just, I just shut down basically. So I was just kind of like, okay, just don't do any of them. And now I'm looking at some of the cards and I'm like, man, I probably should have still paid that for some of them. But like, I'm so stubborn that I just don't want to give them any more money than I have to at the moment. And it's frustrating but I also get it. Like, I own a business and I have a time of the year where I'm exceptionally busy. And when people bring me a job that's going to be more of a pain in the ass, I can knock out all these easy jobs, make that money, and not have to worry about it. You give me something that's going to make me more inefficient, I'm going to charge you more. Like, that's just how it works. Like, that's how business works. And so, but as a consumer, it sucks. And so it's just kind of like, I see both sides of this.
I respect you for defending them at the moment. But
so, I mean, just looking at it as a business sense, like, I get it, right? Like, but there's nothing on their thing about we might have to charge you for research. And so like, that's kind of like, yeah, it's like the bait and switch, right? Like you see an advertisement for a car, then you get in there and they're like, well, that's just this one car. This, all the ones we have other than that are $20,000 more.
I see someone posted a screenshot today in the Discord about their research fee, which is, I said, $50 or $75.
So they told me they were going to charge me $75 per card.
Jeez. Like,
so I mean that's like, it went from $25 to $100 immediate. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, well, that's what PSA will charge me, and they don't charge me for research, and I get in a PSA holder, which doesn't look as nice, but guess what? It sells for more. So like, it's tough because I would love most of my PC to be in
something you like to look at.
SGC holders, yeah. But I don't think I ever send another card to them now.
So the problem that I have is I've been buying consistently since May, June, July, August, September. I was buying everything I could find. Don't ask me how much money I spent because I won't. And I was getting 10 packages a day consistently. It was great. Every two, and I'd forget what I bought every day. And I was convinced I was sending everything to PSA. Because why? Because every time you see a slab online on eBay, it's PSA. And the only time I'd see an SGC slab, it would be the old slab. It would have the paper.
The green, yeah.
Green, like the paper, what's it called? The label.
Flip, yeah.
And mainly that was Al would be a lot of his, I guess. So I would think like, oh, that looks pretty crappy. Why is SGC even a thing? That looks, and it's, they have a number out of 100, 96, 92.
Yeah, the old style, yeah.
What the hell? That's pretty random. And then there was a guy, Anthony is his name, SACC Cards. He's a soccer coach based in somewhere in America, and he also has a card business. He's a really good guy, and he got a huge lot back from SGC. Sent them like 1,000 cards, and he was I used to chat to him quite often. I was like, wow, like that is actually, wow, these look really good. Like it's a new label. I was like, wow. And he was telling me they're like a lot cheaper. This was an old bulk rate of like $7 a card. I was like, oh, wow, that is ridiculous. And then I became friends with Mark from Football Cards Net, who has a ridiculous, he has the wall of messages.
Beautiful. Yep.
And he told me he sent some cards to PSA, but he sent the bulk of his maybe about 2,000 cards to SGC. And he was the one that convinced me send to SGC because they look amazing.
They do.
And I was done, set. So SGC for me, which I still think SGC looks the best. You cannot convince me otherwise that SGC is not the best looking slab on the market. And I did not want to send any card until I finished my purchasing. And the problem was my buying, when I was like, okay, this is my last thing. I'm like, then every day I was buying.
Yeah.
So I'm actually waiting for one more package, by the way. One more package that's coming from Portugal. Then I have officially not waiting for anything. I had to post something today on eBay, but that was cheap. that was cheap. That was $20. But like, I was gonna wait for everything to be finished and then send to SGC. Then what happened was, while I was waiting, I missed the PSA price increase. Okay, not a big deal. It was still cheap. BGS puts up their prices. Okay, not a big deal. Then it was November last year. I made contact with SGC. I said, listen, I would like to send, the bulk rate was $7 a card. So the guy's like, listen, we're going to put our prices. They're going to go up next year, but I can't tell you exactly what they are because I don't know. But I can tell you that the bulk rate I can't give it 7. It might be 10. If it goes to $15 for a standard card, it'll be, $10. I was like, okay, that's cool. So I had money set aside. I was going to grade 3,000 cards. $30,000 was kind of my rough budget. So I was like, okay, I'll send you everything. Even if I know down the line that they might sell for a little bit cheaper, I know that I'm not planning on selling for a couple of years. Like they look really cool. I just generally like them. I'll send him everything. Then what happened was someone on Instagram told me, actually Football Card Guru, if you're listening, he told me, he's like, hey, I sent a card and one sticker to SGC and they charged me $35 custom cut fee. What is that about? So I was like, what the hell? What do you mean? Like they told me it'd be $10 each. So I started looking into it. Then all of a sudden on their website, it said custom cut fee, $35. So I was like, what the hell is this? So I reached out to my guy, the rep, and he's like, oh yeah, this is true. We charge $35 now. So I said, okay. But then he said, don't worry. We have hundreds of pre-cut molds because, they do vintage baseball, which is a lot of cigarette cards. So I was like, okay, cool. So I emailed him. I emailed him about 50 pictures of cards and stickers. And I wrote out the measurements. I posted them on the Discord too. I wrote out the measurements, the dimension, like an Aquarella card, random stickers, 50 different dimensions. Just to say, hey, can you let me know which one of these you have pre-cut molds for? And then I'll only send you, one.
What fits, yeah.
And he said, no, just by quickly looking at those, I can guarantee all of those are going to be custom cut. So I said, okay, well, you be willing to share. Could you put the list of, you have hundreds of pre-cut molds. Are you willing to publish them on your website? He was like, no, I'll have to speak to the owners. I don't know why this would be a big secret, like a trade secret. I said, can you share it with me so that I can share it with the soccer community? So I can say, guys, look, SGC is grading this particular size. It's going to be $10. He's like, no. I said, okay, can you just share it just with me? I promise I won't tell anyone. They said, no, we can't do that. So I said, okay, how many stickers would I have to send in before you make a new mold? Is it 100? Is it 1,000? Is it 100,000? He said it might have to be a few thousand. Are we talking about a mold? This is not like a NASA satellite part that costs millions of dollars to make. This is a cheap little, mold. It's like a little waffle maker. I think that,
Right.
It's cheap. It can't cost more than $50 to make this thing. So I said, okay, look, there's the standard sticker size, the Panini World Cup sticker. They've had the same design from 1990 to 2018. There's like 50 different sets. There's a Brazilian, the Campeonato. There's the Panini foot. There's the Panini Calciatore. It has pretty much the same size. If you could just make this one mold, that will solve a million problems. I will send you personally 500 stickers. And they just flat out ignored our emails. We've tried to email them again with Al and Mark. I've emailed them. They are not interested. They've basically unofficially told us, like, hey, we just don't want to grade soccer. Then I've heard these people in the group the last week saying there's this custom research fee together. Oh, and then the custom cut fee went from 35 to now 50. So for me, it was just, while I still love them, PSA, became cheaper, which is funny enough. And then when I heard PSA, I waited so long to grade that PSA were increasing their prices again. I was like, well, I have to make a decision. I have to do it now. And this was like on the 24th of February. There's only like 4 days left.
Sure.
So that's when I sent 200 cards to Jamie. The rest I did myself. So I have 1,628 cards at PSA, and I would have given all of my money. I hope someone from SUC is listening to this, because I would have given them all my money happily. And I'm still their biggest promoter. I love the slabs. They look amazing.
Yeah. I'm right there with you, but it's just like there's a lot of things working against them. The resale value. Like, so why are you going to pay more to get it graded elsewhere and then be able to sell it for less? And like, it just doesn't make sense. It's like, if I pay $25 to get this card slabbed, but they're just so booked up that they don't care. And the problem is that's going to affect your business long term, though. And like, it's okay at this moment to say, no, we don't want your business, but that person's never going to come back to you.
Exactly.
Like it's so obvious. It's like business ABC, right? Like
ABC had three things going for them. Well, the looks, it's aesthetically pleasing.
Yes.
The cost, it was cheaper. Even if the resale was the only thing where vintage, it's probably a little bit on par, maybe with PSA. Although there's not enough.
It's closer for sure.
There's not enough graded SGC slabs, especially in the new the new label, to do a proper comparison.
Yeah.
Modern, they're definitely behind in modern. But I was like, you know what? If I'm going to send you 1,000 vintage cards, I'll send you 1,000 modern, because just easier. And with the white border, it's a no-brainer. It looks great.
Oh, beautiful.
But the fact that at the time the turnaround time was terrible, the price is more expensive. So if it looks better, that's cool. But then if the resale value is not going to be that great in the future, so it breaks my heart. I honestly feel like I'm in love with the girl. The girl is SUC, and she just has flat out ignored my texts, basically. She's not interested. She doesn't know I exist, and I love her. And I'll never get the goal, and that makes me sad. But
move on.
We're going to move on.
Plenty of fish in the sea.
Maybe I'll go to HGA or GMA, or who knows?
Hey, who knows? Okay, so let's you got a little more time?
I have all the time in the world, my friend.
All right. Let's go to another grading conversation. Buying raw. So this was a topic you wanted to speak about. And is it worth it for modern? And how about vintage? So why don't you start talking? I'm going to go off camera for a second, and I'll be back momentarily.
Toilet break. So guys, my experience from buying, both raw and vintage, I tell people that I'm all in on the vintage, which I am, but I have flirted with modern. And unfortunately, if I could go back in time, I would have never bought a single modern card unless it was already graded and already graded in a PSA 10. I have bought so many cards. This is just from a box that I've opened. I bought so many cards that were advertised as mint, and if you look at the photos, they look amazing. You'd think, oh, this is a PSA 10. But if you look very carefully under a light, under a loop, if you're holding it and you see there's a surface damage, and you're like, shit, this is not going to be a 10. It's not even going to be a 9. Like, I'm screwed. So I've basically, I'm going to struggle to get my money back. Whereas if you're buying, if you're buying vintage cards, the condition doesn't matter at all. In fact, the damage, the better, almost. Whether your card's going to be a PSA 1 or a PSA 2, if you're buying a vintage card, that doesn't matter. That is awesome. Whereas modern, if your card is not a PSA 10, sometimes a PSA 9, you're probably going to lose money for a modern card, especially now with the new grading prices. So I have definitely, I want you guys to learn from my lesson. If you're buying modern, unless it's an absolute steal, I would just rather pay extra money up front, buy a PSA 10 or a PSA 9. Don't buy a modern card that's in good condition, judging by the photos online, thinking that, this is going to be a PSA 10. Especially when we can talk about pop control, which PSA will never, of course, admit, but that is definitely a thing. That's another podcast episode altogether. I think also when you're buying vintage cards, there's way more upside buying raw vintage, getting it graded, versus buying raw modern and getting it graded. I would think if you're buying modern PSA 10s and sitting on them, that is very good. But when it comes to buying raw, especially if you're buying vintage, you don't really have to worry about the condition. Obviously, if you have the choice of buying the better one, buy the better one. But if this one is removed, if this one is beat up, that is okay, because we know they are. Well, we talk about pop reports. They're a little bit more rare, but it's going to be worth so much more money. So your what's it called? You're going to have such a greater return if it's a raw vintage card and you're grading.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And that's the thing, is the scarcity is just what, it really doesn't matter the grade of the card. I mean, it does to, in comparison to other cards, other of the same card, but it doesn't matter, because if there's 100 cards out there, if you have one of them, even if it's a PSA 1, that's where the value is, right? that you have one.
Yeah.
And the other, but for the modern, you have to have a 10 or a scarce, a 1 of 1 or a 1 of 10.
The green prism parallel or whatever. So I, like I said, I'm all in on the vintage strain, but when 2014 prism, when Ronaldo and Messi were going for PSA 10 was going for $4.5 grand, I bought 4 raw Ronaldos. It's embarrassing to say, but I paid $1,200 for 4 raw Ronaldos. And at the time, I mean, the photos, it was on eBay. It was an auction, and the photos were this is gem mint, this is proper. So I was I have 4 cards. I just need one to grade a 10. So I just need one to grade a 9, and I've basically doubled my money at the time.
How'd that go?
Well, I was sorting through my stash of stuff to send to PSA, and actually I bought another 3 or 4 or 5 Ronaldos for $100 each, which I think that's probably more of a fair price. And going through everything now, I'm looking at them under more scrutiny with the magnifying glass, under light. I'm like, shit, none of these are going to be a 10. I didn't even send them for grading.
Yeah, that's the challenge, right? Just not seeing the imperfections when you're buying online.
What bothers me is I bought 4 or 5 from from PWCC, where they take the ultra, they have a very good high def photos. And I bought a few raw cards from PWCC. They looked amazing in the photos. Bring it home under scrutiny, little bit of surface damage there. Another thing that bothers me about PWCC, I'm not sure if you have bought a raw card from them, but they did not put it in a penny sleeve. I went straight into the top loader, naked.
Oh my God.
Yeah, naked. I bought a Johan Cruyff van der Hout clean from them, naked into a penny top loader.
Oh my God, because that's just a rough plastic. And
I know, again, the more vintage, not the end of the world. a prism.
Right. Oh my God, I would be so pissed. And not drunk. I would be.
And at the time, I didn't know. I didn't know this was. I just thought this was. No, but I quickly learned like that is terrible. Like customer service, like that is. Yeah. So
that had to have been a slip up. I hope. All right. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that's pretty I don't even know what to say about modern, but it's when you look at the pop reports and you see that 60 to 70% of the cards are grading 10s, a PSA 9 shouldn't be worth the average, right? You know what I mean? It shouldn't be worth that much because you're getting a bottom, you're getting a bottom 40 percentile card. So how can that ever be worth more money than buying one raw? It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't compute.
At the time when I bought those Ronaldos, I paid $300 each. If I think back now, I'm going to kill myself. There's so much more vintage I could have bought for $300. But I was like, okay, I'm paying less than 10% of a PSA 10. So I used it as my ratio. I was like, wow, but then I use the law of averages. If I'm buying 4, only one has to get a PSA 9. And
it makes sense, right? The logic's there.
Yeah, exactly. I thought I was kind of calculating this and I had a game plan. But then also I found out that, wow, that's not like you submit something to PSA tomorrow and by next week you get it back. It takes, 9 months if you're sending bulk. If you want to pay $100 or more, that's a lot of money to throw into what it could be worth. You're spending 10% on the grading fee. Never mind what an upcharge is. I wasn't really familiar with that. So, I learned the hard way that, so I would stay, unless it was genuinely cheap modern that I just thought looked cool.
Yeah.
These, I just use this as an example, but these are really cheap stickers. I just thought they look cool. So I'm not I paid a lot of money for them, but I'd rather pay a premium for PSA 10 modern than have to worry about buying raw grading.
Yeah, that's a good point, Ray, that 9s for modern might be worth more now just because the grading fees, and it's gonna what's the word I'm looking for?
I think everything. Well, the way I look at it now, basically every graded card, especially for SGC. So I do have some SGC cards. Well, I've never graded with them. I do. I'm the type of guy that would still pay a premium for SGC. Just because I like them. I'm prepared to pay the price because I think it's worth it.
Yeah.
But I think SGC now, if you have SGC slabs, I basically would just say in my mind, okay, it's worth extra $100 because of the custom fee, because of the grading fee, the research fee. Same with PSA. I would just say, okay, my card is now worth extra $25 or flat rate because it's the grading fee has gone up. So that's the way I'm kind of trying to justify things.
Yeah, you just got to add that price to your card if you sell, all of those sort of things. So it's just like if they had, if minimum wage was $15, the consumer is going to end up paying the price for that. So, but we're not going to get into all that. So did you share when I was gone, did you talk about Ansu Fati?
No.
Okay. Do you want to, or do you not want to?
Okay. So
you don't want to, but would you care to share that story?
Sure. So like I told everybody, I am, again, all in on vintage. And at the time, everyone was on these rookies. Mbappe, I don't classify Mbappe as a rookie because he's already won a World Cup. He's been playing for I think he's 22. No, he's been playing for 6 years already. So maybe Holland is more of a rookie, Ansu Fati. And I was like, let me choose one guy and kind of buy a couple of his cards, right? So I purchased 200 Ansu Fati stickers, the Esther stickers, his rookie, 2019, 2020, from a guy in Spain. I basically paid $30 each. At the time, the raws were going for 60 to 80 for one. And I thought, wow, I'm getting a good deal. There you go. And my guy is his trusted seller. I bought from him before. He even shows me videos. He was using his gloves. Everything's in a top loader, penny sleeve, well wrapped. Great. I get them and I had them. I didn't touch them for a while, for a few months. But then I was doing my PSA sub. I started going through everything. and I was looking through almost every single card. So I still subbed quite a bit, but almost every single card has like a very fine printing. It's not a printing, it's like an ink blotch on the bottom right where his kind of foot is. There's like a couple of dots that's just a printing, I'll call it a printing error. I'm like, shit, that's not a PSA 10. That's something, that's something wrong with it. I'd love to see what my cards get back. And I'm like, then every second card had a running up the middle, if you look at it with your naked eye, you're like, oh, this is perfect card. You could sell it on eBay as a perfect card. You could describe it as a perfect card, and it is, or a sticker. And then if I just look under the light at a slight angle, it looks like it's kind of, it was like it was pressed against something, but it's not, it wasn't the way it was packaged. This is just the way I guess it came off the printing press. And I'm like, shit, this is not a PSA 10. It's not even, it's hopefully going to be a PSA 8. And I think back like, wow, $6,000. Of course, it doesn't help that he's injured because now the prices has dropped.
Correct.
If he's the golden ball in 2026, obviously I'll be happy, right? But to have three knee surgeries by the time you're 18, that's still young, but probably not the best thing. He plays for Spain, which is good because they're guaranteed to basically be in the World Cup and the Euros. But basically, that was $6,000 I spent. The amount that I graded, thrown another $2,000. How many vintage cards could I have bought for $8,000? I could have almost bought a raw Alifa.
Yep. At that time, you could have.
I know. I could have maybe even bought two. Who knows?
Oh my God.
And I think.
But that's not where your mind was. That's not where the money was going. So you can't really think about it that way. Exactly. Although I know you do. And
it keeps me up. It keeps me up at night. So like, well, I still have. I know Fadi's career is not over. He's 18. He had 3 knee surgeries, but it'll be very important. Like his first 10 games back for Barca. He's got to get on.
Yeah, you need to see a few goals, right?
Exactly. So, I mean, to get my money back, that is definitely a long-term investment just to try and get my money back, what I paid. So I look at that as an example. Like Pele, he's not going to break his leg tomorrow. Platini is, he's not going to get a hamstring injury. The
worst thing is that maybe he gets caught for some sort of, fraud or, some sort of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Bribery.
Yeah.
No one's going to take away Johan Cruyff's golden Ballon d'Ors. You know what I mean? Like, look at that's so like Gary V he says why he's so into Pokemon. He says Pikachu's not going to tear his ACL tomorrow, and that is such a big thing. A lot of guys for basketball they invested in Zion. He kind of had an injury. I think he's still a pretty good player, but like. These guys
there's just a ton of risk.
So much risk.
Yeah.
I look at this example. Someone paid $30,000 for a Jadon Sancho card. Okay. There was a 1 of 1. I don't care if it is like the only card ever made in the world ever. $30,000, right? For you, in my opinion, for this guy to get his money back, England are going to have to win a World Cup. He's going to have to win 3 Ballon d'Ors, and he's going to have to find a cure for cancer. Like, that's just to get money back.
So put your money into Marcus Rashford. He's much more likely to do that.
Well, hey, I love Marcus Rashford. I think
Me too.
Like as a person, what a great person. But anyway, that's just learn from what there's nothing wrong with buying Ansu Fati, of course.
But maybe not that many.
Yeah, don't buy 200 of one player.
See, because even like me, who has been entrenched in vintage for a decade more, like I still like to dabble in the new stuff, but like I buy a couple pieces, and that's enough for me to get my fix and say, oh, okay, cool, I made some money or I didn't. Like, I have a couple Fatis, I have a couple Haalands, I have a couple Mbappes, like those are like kind of what I'm. And it's just like, okay, I just want to have a little bit of like a very small amount of skin in the game, And
I think like if you follow, like if you regularly watch soccer, like every Saturday you wake up early in the morning,
I do.
Premier League, then hey, it's cool if you have, you want to see how it's almost like the stock market, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You want to see how your player does, blah blah blah. It's cool. It's like it's like betting even if you're only betting like $5 on the game, the game becomes more exciting, right?
Yeah.
Because you have skin in the game.
Exactly.
So then I totally get it. But for someone like me who doesn't really watch soccer,
Yeah, maybe you got a little overzealous and
schoolboy mistake.
yeah, well, live and learn, right? We make mistakes throughout this life, so
Hey,
just learn from them.
If he's the golden boot in the 2026 World Cup, guess who'll be laughing, right?
Yeah, the 2026 wcInvestor will. So you got plenty of time. Don't freak out about it yet. You're telling yourself exactly when you got to start worrying, and that's 2026.
Here's another thing I just want to say too. So I'm 32. I'll be 33 this year. Born in '88, baby. And I've been investing in the stock market since I was 18.
Mm.
And I'm not a millionaire. I'm not a Warren Buffett. I don't want to give financial advice. But, that is a long time. For an 18-year-old, many 18-year-olds or 20 in your 20s, you can't think 3 months in the future. You can't even think next week. So a lot of people, they look at, everyone's investors, right? But people think a long-term investment is till the end of the season or half.
Right.
In like real investing terms, 5 years is considered like a like a low end, like a mid-range investment,
Yeah.
So while a lot of things I would look, obviously everything's for sale at the right price, and money does talk, like money talks and bullshit walks. But like, I would like to think that, I'm looking at things like a bit of at least a year, at least 2 years, at least till the next World Cup cycle, at least.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, I mean, this has been okay, so vintage a year ago, nobody was thinking we'd be where we are now, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's just ridiculous. And so I get the mentality of going, hey, I need to take some money out because this, or some money off the table, just because things have gotten inflated so much. But then at the same time, you're like, well, it's exactly what you're talking about is like, we're still way if the plan was to hold on to these things for a decade or 6 years or whatever it is, like when you look at everything and the whole big picture, nothing's changed. Like there's still a ton of runway for soccer.
So even though when it's your own money, like you can give it, like I don't want to give financial advice because I'm not qualified to, and I'm just an idiot, really.
I'll be more than happy to.
But if my plan was if I bought something for $1,000 in June, for example, which I did, and my plan was, okay, I think I'm speculating in the future that this will be worth $10,000 by 2026. Like that is a great, if this was a regular stock, you'd be like, oh my God, like you're Warren, you're just genius. But if I can sell it for $10,000 now, shit, do I take that money and run now? Because that is, money talks, right? Like it's
hard, right? Like it's a challenge.
I put in a decent amount of money. So do I think it's still good? I still believe in it for the future, but now it's like, wow, I don't want to be caught with my greedy hand in the cookie jar. If the market shits the bed tomorrow, which I don't think it will, but you always got to think wow, especially someone like you and maybe Al, you told me you've been, or on the chat, you and Al have been buying and selling each other for 10 years.
Yeah.
You guys, I don't even want to know, you must have bought some cards for nothing. And I don't tell me how much because it's going to make me angry. But so, you could have bought something for $10. It could be worth $1,000 or $100 could be worth $10,000.
100%. That has happened. Yes.
Yeah. And you're like, oh my God, what other, besides being an early person in Bitcoin, which we're not going to talk about, but that is a ridiculous return. And you think, wow, 2026, I think it was you in the Discord, you said if soccer collecting was a year, we're still in January pretty much. We're in the second or third week of January, basically. If 2026 maybe is December, or we're still getting started. I mean, especially for soccer was very tiny. The vintage soccer group must have been almost nothing. The UNL for 10 years, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys that aren't. Well, they're in the Discord, but they're not active in the Discord. That were in it longer than Al or I, and yeah, I mean, there's a community. It's hard to say how many were actually out there collecting vintage soccer at the time, but I mean, we crossed paths with probably 20 to 30 people that were all kind of in the same thing over the even going back only like 3 years. So like, there wasn't a ton of people in it, and we all kind of it was pretty easy to get what you wanted because not everybody was going after the same thing.
That's true.
And so like now it's just, we have 200 people that are all going for, it's in everybody's collection now. Nobody's selling. So those few that pop up, we have, even if we have 10% of the Discord going after the same card, that's 20 people.
Yeah.
And so it's just, the competition is just so much greater now. And, it's different for Al, myself, some of the other people who've been collecting for a while, because we're just like, all right, just like, I don't need that card now. I have one. Or
I think like I'm pretty happy if I don't buy a card for 6 years. Like I'm pretty happy deleting my Instagram, just like going dark for 6 years and then just waiting for everything to be graded. And so, like,
dude, how crazy would that be? Like for you just do that, and then like right before 2026, you're like, all right, we're gonna do a mass reveal of all of my grades. Like,
well, it might take them 6 years to get it. So,
yes, that's true.
So, I mean, I'm pretty happy with what I got. Like the only time now I'll buy something is if it's like an absolute steal. Like I've noticed something on eBay that nobody else has seen, or I met, or a collector.
Like I buy it now. That was, yeah.
No one's offered it to me first, and I'm like, wow, shit. No one knows of, I don't know, player X. And it's a really great deal. Like maybe I'd consider buying it, but like I haven't bought anything, and now I'm way too late to jump into like Holland or I don't know, Mbappe really, or those guys. Like I'm not going to buy a 2022 World Cup prism numbered, like that's just not my game, and I know it's gonna be way too expensive.
And yeah, and I kind of want to talk about what you said about the calendar, and like I don't think 2026 is December. Like I think 2026 is like April.
Wow, shit.
So like 2026 is when I think that there's going to be a larger interest in soccer in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So like we're not even, like the United States has very little interest in soccer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, that shows like Golden, it's an American auction house.
Yep.
That has less bidders from the United States for their soccer items. Like that just shows you like how soccer is in the United States right now. It's like truly in its infancy. And so that's why 2026 is when I think like it's starting to grow here. And so, I mean, like, I'm getting giddy talking about this because it's like right now we have 250 people in the Discord, and these cards are so scarce. These vintage cards, like they're so scarce. What happens when we have 2,000 people in this Discord?
That's
like,
true.
Like,
yeah. And we talk about there's been 500 graded Pele rookies. If they, I mean, well, we already know, like I have a couple, you have a couple, like
let's say it's 2,000 after this rush. Even then, that's only one per person in the Discord, and that doesn't represent the world.
Exactly. Or the people that, like, there are a lot of collectors that I've met, well, on eBay that I've sort of chatted to, like, they don't have an Instagram account. They don't, they're not in any Facebook groups. They don't have social media really. You know what I mean? So like,
we are such a small little community of this global group of people that collect cards. And like, I can't believe, you know what I mean? Like, I just can't foresee vintage soccer losing. Like, I can't see it.
Well, like I tell people that if you're considering soccer like an investment, like I compare modern cards. Well, say if you're investing in the stock market, right? Modern cards are like investing in startups. Thousands of startups start up every year. 99% of them will shut the bed within 6 months. We'll never hear of them again. But then that 0.1% will turn into a Google or a Facebook.
Yeah, you hit the lottery.
Yeah, exactly, right? And that's the same thing with buying rookies of modern cards.
Yep.
There are, Instagram. Look, I wouldn't call myself an expert, and I don't want to. I don't think anybody's an expert. Like yourself and Al are very experienced, but I'm sure
We're not experts.
You learn things every day, right? If you had to buy every single player that these like influencers or this start trending, some guy scores 2 goals in the Premier League, La Liga, Serie A. Everyone's like, oh, you got to buy blah, blah, blah. You got to buy this guy. You got to buy this guy. If you bought every single player that kind of had like a trending day, you would have to buy 500 players for the year, right?
Yep.
Of those 500 players, 490, you're not going to hear from them in a year's time. 5 might have okay careers. 5 might play in the World Cup. Oh, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, just Greenwood, right? Like he was the
next
he was like what everybody wanted.
Yeah.
Like, and now like he's not even getting playing time. And it's like, all that money that was spent, like, when they did the restart last year.
He has a couple of 1-of-1s, 1-of-5s, 1-of-10s, blah, blah, blah. I would like that's lost money for sure. So like I compare buying rookies like that as investing in startups.
Yeah.
Whereas it's high. I mean, your potential growth is much greater. You can make like 1,000 times your money technically. Yep. But it's far more risk. Like the chance of doing that is like finding a needle in a haystack. But investing in vintage, especially the vintage goats, Pele, Maradona, Cruyff, etc., it's like investing in a blue chip company that's been around for 200 years. They're not sexy, they'll get you your 10%, 15% growth a year, but you can put your mortgage, your 401k in it. Like they're not going to go anywhere. Your big companies that have been around forever.
Right. And if they lose a little bit, it's not going to be like
in the long run. It's not
going to be much. And yeah, they're always going to trend up because there's like betting on vintage is betting on interest in soccer.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Like as more interest in soccer and in the United States and Europe, collecting soccer, Asia, like you're just the demand. That's what we're betting on. The demand is going to continue to increase and increase. And so, yeah, I just don't think there's any way that that you lose. Like I just can't.
Right.
Like short term, possibly. Like if there's going to be corrections, there's going to be that sort of thing.
Markets will ebb and flow, I'm sure. And then I've spoken to collectors that have been in the game longer than myself, and they have said World Cups, Euros, they didn't really make much of a difference because it wasn't really a soccer collectibles market. Like if you were to ask me, I would say, sure, every major tournament, the market will kind of reach a little peak. But then, like the stock market or any investment, things don't go like that. They might go like that, down, it will ebb and flow.
But when you back up and you look at the big picture, you're seeing this progression. Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like Euros, don't bank on that being like a huge impact. Now, especially with vintage.
Yeah.
Like,
well, you see, like if it's if Ansu Fati all of a sudden, touch wood, recovered from and he started playing, wow, sure, his cards would probably, if he scored a hat trick in the opening game, oh, geez, his cards would skyrocket.
Right. And that's a specific.
Pele, his cards would still just creep on. But
you do see an uptick in interest from people that weren't interested before.
Yeah.
With the World Cups. So, like, let's say you get 20% increase in interest for, during the World Cup. Well, some of that's going to trickle down into vintage. So you end up with more and more people getting interested in the history of the game, that sort of thing. And so every major tournament is a positive, like even if it's not like a huge impact.
So I think it plays again, so we do the top 25 MVP videos on Mark's channel. Great. It's a team effort.
It is great. Watch those. Anybody that's not watching them.
I look, so if you look at the highest ones, there's modern, but like it's generally the vintage guys that are near the top. And every time there's a record sale, we saw the Maradona disc PSA 7 went for what, 120? I'm not sure what.
No, it's like 160 something.
With buyer's premium, 160 odd.
Yep.
Like people will see that, they'll be like, shit, people pay attention. When the Alifa, went for 285, I think plus the buyer's premium was so over 300, whatever. people gonna take
Yeah, they'll notice. Yep.
Exactly. So that's why, I think like a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yep.
What's the saying?
I think that's right.
Yeah, it's only. However, when Haaland goes for 20K, 50K, I don't think vintage really. I would say when vintage increases, it's good for the market in general. When a modern card goes to record price, I'm not sure if that's necessarily good for, or not good, but I don't think it necessarily helps vintage.
Yeah, it's much less. I mean, you might bring a few more collectors in just because they see that they get involved in modern cards, then they see that's just too risky for them, so they get into vintage. Like, it's got to be like there's a lot of things that have to happen before for that to, indirectly affect vintage. But yeah, I somehow we always get to like this kind of conversation on these shows just about like where what we see going forward. And like, it's just like if your wife is concerned about your all this money you spent, like she was chiming in the background about this better be worth it.
Well, it helps when I started getting 10, 20 mail packages a day. Firstly, the mailman was probably like, what the hell?
Oh yeah. Mine's the same.
Cards? Like what? Like these packages are coming from Spain, Brazil, Australia, like all over the world. Like, what is this guy doing? He's running international smuggling ring. And I always told my wife, I was like, listen, she gets pissed off with me because my organizational setup is a shambles, right? I have totes under the bed, in the garage, under in my kids' room. Like there's plastic boxes everywhere. I have like crap all over the desk here. The desk is like the lounge area.
Yeah.
And I said, babe, listen, this is your money as much as it is my money one day. Like, this is gonna buy us a house, hopefully. But like this, it's like don't
it will buy you a house.
Throw my cards out. Like, this is serious stuff.
Well, I mean, you the proof's in the pudding. Like, you can show auctions that have sold from what you paid for whatever, and and what it is now. Like, I mean, it's just incredible, right? And oh my God.
No, really. I mean, especially for guys, like if I got into the hobby 6 months before, or even in May, if I bought, but you can't play the could have, should have, would have game.
Yeah,
because
I try not to do that at all.
We would have bought a Alifa for like 10 grand or whatever it was. I randomly was doing research the one night and I found a thread to a forum, like a baseball.
Net 54. That's Al and I were on that all the time. Yeah.
I want to say it's mainly for baseball.
It's baseball. It's net54baseball.com. So yeah.
Someone was asking about Alifa or Pele, and they said Alifa, and someone said, "Oh, yeah, you can buy the Alifa PSA 9, but it's going to cost you a lot." And someone's
like 50 grand, right? Or 20 grand.
This was 10 years ago.
Oh.
It went for someone said it's probably going to cost you $1,000.
Yeah, I mean, if you look in that, I bet you see El Rey, and I bet you.
So I did see Al's name. I'm not sure if what your handle would have been.
I can't remember what my handle is in that. Yeah.
And it was I think someone paid $850 for one in 2008.
I mean, and that's how it was. Like, I mean,
again, if I always say if we could all predict the future, and it comes down to every investment, Bitcoin, Tesla, whatever, we'd all be millionaires. It's an easy game if you can predict. If sports betting, if you can predict the future, but wow, I mean, the thing is, like Bitcoin. People say, okay, what would happen if you bought Bitcoin at 1 cent? And that's now 40 grand, whatever it is. But you would have never, by the time it got to $100 and you've already made 1,000 times your money.
Yeah, you may have sold it. So
exactly.
Yeah, I bought Bitcoin back in the day for 400, and I won't tell you what I did with that.
I don't have any.
So I don't have it. I'll tell you that right now. But that's yeah, I mean, it's just it's those things. Like, I look at it and I sold so many cards over the course of time that I put that money into other stuff. It just so whether it was, I wouldn't have the cards I have now if I hadn't sold some other cards. So for me to beat myself up over something like that, or whatever it is, right? I mean, opportunities come, we just make our best decision we can at that moment. So
I think, ultimately, if we're looking at ourselves as an investment, like you got to have an exit strategy in any investment.
Yeah.
Even like, sports betting, gambling, stock market. Like I've done pretty well in 2020 in the stock market, but like unless I actually sold, you didn't realize those profits, right?
Correct.
And then the last month, the market actually kind of crapped the bed a little, or the last 2 weeks has been a little bit of a downside. So I'm always like, well, exit strategy is also very important to talk about. But before we answer this question, give me 30 seconds.
I'll answer, and then you can do what you got to do.
Okay.
All right. So Kellen asks, how about a question not exactly related to card market, favorite teams, and players currently? So I've answered this over the shows over the last 6 months, but my favorite teams, because when I was watching soccer growing up, there wasn't a lot of soccer on television. So I was at the mercy of what ESPN played at random times. So they only showed matches of Celtic, Ajax, and Manchester United. So those are the 3 teams I still, follow. So, I mean, Manchester United is probably my top team. That's who I truly support. So I'm one of those, people. I know you are too, Kellen. But my favorite player currently is Rashford. I mean, I just like the dude. He's so smooth. He's so calm. He's just a great kid. And, I just like how he just goes about his business. You don't hear anything negative about him. You hear these amazing things he does for the community and, getting involved with parliament and all that, making them, do shit they don't want to do so like, I just truly appreciate Marcus Rashford. Like he's the guy that, but I like all the there's all these stars. Like I really watch soccer now as almost like a drama. Like I just enjoy watching everything. And like, I love Haaland. Like he's just he's so confident and just this young kid that, he's just amazing. Like he just scores so many goals. Like it's just awesome. But Mbappe, like all those guys I love, but like Rashford's my favorite, and he's always going to be like the guy that I root for.
Growing up, I'm a Man United fan too, and people always say like, oh, glory hunters, because during the 90s and the early 2000s they were so dominant. But I just started supporting Man United when Arsenal won the double. So I think that was 97-98. Arsenal won the double. Then I was a big Man United fan. Beckham was obviously kind of a big deal, but also I really like Ryan Giggs for his kind of longevity. The fact that he didn't get as enough. Well, when we talk about now, he's probably a little bit of a bad boy.
Yeah, he absolutely is now, right?
But like, he's a one-man, one club legend. Like, he didn't really get enough limelight. I mean, I think Giggs is like one of the underrated. If he played for like a Barcelona or Real Madrid, or if he was English and played for England and like played a lot more international football, he would have. I mean, I know he could have chosen England or Wales as a schoolboy, and he chose Wales because that's
good for him. Stand true.
But like, yes, I was a big Giggs fan. Also, really like Paul Scholes, just because he didn't really take any shit. Pretty hardcore midfielder, but like pretty good defender too. Some massive tackles. I think he might be in the top 10 for most red cards in the Premier League, or most.
Good for him.
But he also they didn't get the limelight. Beckham kind of stole the limelight.
Sure.
So kind of big fans. I felt like Giggs and Scholes were kind of like always under the radar. Nowadays, my favorite team. So I really like Forest Green Rovers, who play in League Two, but that's mainly because of the owner, Dale Vincent, who is a big like eco-environmental guy, and so they're the world's first vegan football club.
Oh, cool.
Their shirts are made from recycled coffee beans. Their stadium.
That's awesome.
Yeah, their plans for the new stadium is going to be 100% renewable. Like really, really cool. So I kind of have a very big soft spot for them.
Cool.
Too. And also they have some really cool, like their shirts is green and white, kind of like zebra stripes. So
it's like the Man U from.
So traditionally, I'm a Man United fan, and then in South Africa, I grew up supporting Ajax Cape Town. That was our local professional football club, who actually doesn't exist anymore because Ajax Amsterdam cut the partnership. Yeah.
So Patrick Kluivert was my favorite back in the day.
Okay.
So yeah, because I was the Ajax, like I loved watching Ajax back in this is the 80s and early 90s that I really saw. Like ESPN only showed like 3 teams, like I was saying before you pop back on.
I used to love Edgar Davids when he used to wear goggles. That was probably the late 90s, early 2000s. Also really, really decent player.
Yep. So that's so that answers that. I don't really have much else. You got any topics you want to talk? I think there's a couple more banners. I don't know if
let's do it. I have all the time in the world.
Are defenders and goalkeepers worth buying?
So, I mean, I have a couple of Peter Schmeichels, Buffons. I mean, Franz Beckenbauer is a defender, although Beckenbauer is probably in the top 10 of all time. I mean,
I don't think there's any debate.
I don't think you can really, the Kaiser, you can't really not put him in the top 10 of all time. Again, I bought these players are really cheap, but I think if you look at historical, sports, any type of sport, the cards that get the most money are the point scorers. Quarterbacks in football, power forwards in, basketball. It's basically all the, defenders. No one gets any love for defenders. That's just the way it is. And that's, So
it's just the purists that get like that can appreciate that. I think that, most people who collect are, I would argue, they don't have a deep knowledge of the sport.
Mm-hmm.
So to appreciate non-point scorers, like it takes somebody who has a more in-depth knowledge of the sport to understand their true value to the teams. And
if you look at, so I'm a cricket fan, right? And cricket is very similar to baseball in terms of it's a very stat-driven sport, and they're both very individualistic team sports. Just the pitcher and the batter, like one-on-one, basically. But if you look at soccer, it's a team sport in a sense where there's not much stats. You have goals and assists, and even assists, they haven't always kept an accurate record.
No, they just started that like in the last decade.
But now, if you look at Premier League and all the leagues in the last few years, they do percentage of passes completed, meters gained, or tackles completed, blah, 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 blah. But if you look at historical, I do research on these historical players, it's like goals, games, goals. So it's very difficult to,
it's nice to see, there are players that are getting their due, like you see Sergio Ramos,
mm-hmm.
like his cards are pulling some, and like but yeah, as in the grand scheme, like that's something that you're going to pick as like a hope that long-term that player gets appreciated.
Yep.
Like Yashin is the best goalkeeper of all time, according to most people.
Yeah.
And it's not like his stuff is like incredibly valuable.
FIFA, it's the FIFA goalkeeper of the year. It's the Yashin award. That should tell you alone that that is a big deal. But you can pick up his cards from the 60s for like relatively inexpensive.
Yeah, like $10 for like a 66.
So again, it ultimately comes down to you and your budget. If you think $10 for a card is cheap, and like I would buy a Peter Schmeichel for $10 or a Buffon, which I have. Would I pay $1,000 for a Buffon stick-on auto like Legends 105 card? Probably not. But
definitely not.
like a collector's thing, sure. If it's cheap, buy it. But if you think about what could resell for more in the future, I would probably not stick. Again, Beckenbauer is he's an outlier. Like he's a goal scorer, so like it's not like he, like he's just different, and there's a reason why he's a top 10 player. Maybe like Paolo Maldini. I don't know. There's very few legendary defenders, really.
Hobby-wise, they don't get the respect, so it doesn't. Yeah, it's tough. Like, unless you were on like a storied team.
Yeah,
like that's really the only time you're gonna get your due. So,
or like if you were a set collector and you want a Barcelona, buy that keeper because he's a Barcelona keeper. but not for investment purposes.
Yep, exactly. What percentage of your purchases are purely investment, 2026 WC investor, compared to a personal collection? So it sounds like yours is probably a pretty high percentage.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, the things that I've bought because I like them, nothing
Are
costs
still for investments.
well, nothing costs more than $20, really, 20, 30.
Yeah.
And even those, I know, like, I could sell them for more money than I bought them for. But I initially, I initially got into the hobby as an investor, hence my name. But like, I would say, yeah, like 99% of the things, like I do generally have an affection now towards the vintage, and I will struggle to part with them. The modern cards, if I sold my modern cards tomorrow, I would not care, even if they got sold for $1 million next week. Like, I am done, that's fine.
Yeah.
I have no
There's no emotional attachment to
like,
it.
if I sold a Pele, it would be a big deal. Like, I don't know. I'm a bit of my wife who's got headphones on the couch, like, she would tell me I'm probably a hoarder, but like, so yeah.
That's what collectors are, right?
Well, the difference between a hoarder and a collector is a collector knows where his things are. That's what my dad always told me. He goes like, he collects stamps and phone cards, believe it or not. And he always said, yeah, the difference between a collector and a hoarder doesn't know where his things are.
Okay.
But like,
do you know where yours are?
Yeah,
they're all at PSA.
Well, yeah, they just arrived, so that's good. They're either in this room next door somewhere. Well, having said that, I have lost some cards, and I'm not lost because I know they are.
Yeah, that one magic card, right, or whatever it was, Pokemon.
They're just misplaced. But
okay.
like, yeah, 99% of my stuff is for purely investment. But then, I mean, just to quickly add on to that, like, if I didn't sell some of them, or I couldn't get the price that I wanted, like, I wouldn't lose sleep, because I generally, the vintage, like, if I put them on the wall one day, or like I had a display, like Mark's wall of Messi, like, I wouldn't mind. Like, I generally do think they are pieces of art.
Yeah, I agree. And I would say that I'm probably a very high percentage of investment as well. Like, I got into, I owned a card shop. So my mind, once I owned that, really, it kind of stole the joy of being only a collector away, because when you own the business and you have to pay bills, you start thinking about these things as money.
And so
it's hard now. Like, I mean, I'm back into collecting some, but what I do is I'm still buying cards that I think will appreciate. But if I'm picking between two cards, I'm going to pick the one I like better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, I think this is a nice looking card. This is one I'm happy to have. Like, I like this player better. Maybe they're equal investment wise. I'm going to always pick the one I like better. And even if there's like a little less for this guy, this card, but I think it looks better and all that, like, I'll do that. So I'm not very, I don't have things set in stone. Like, I'm just going to take the best investment. Like, I'm taking cards I like. If it's a 60s German card or it's a 20s Spanish card, like, I'm going to take the 20 Spanish card every time, because I think those cards are just incredibly beautiful cards.
Yeah.
And so it's just it's a hybrid, and I can't really even answer percentage, because like, I appreciate my cards so much that they are a personal collection that I enjoy, but at the same time, I'm fully aware of their investment value. So probably not the right answer, but it is the answer. Let's see. Trying to find. There was one other. Somebody asked about a Zico, but I think Chris, just that's probably a better question to ask, like, when Al and I are on. I really don't. When we get into the 70s, I'm not like a huge 70s guy, so it's hard. And then when he got to, Italy, like in the 8, like, that's just not my wheelhouse of years. So I couldn't really tell you like a good Zico. I mean, I just saw that Matt from a Football Sticker Story podcast just got a 71 Zico. So Luis Suarez, I would get 53 Turmo. Be happy with that. Those are sweet cards. So really clean. But what was I think I had one more banner here. Oh, you had written this down in our notes. When does it start getting obscure for vintage cards? And I think that like most people know players back to 58.
Yeah, so like I look at it like pre-Pele, like the pre-Pele era. When it goes further than that, it's a big. Obviously, there's Di Stefano and Puskas.
Yeah, I mean, those are you're starting to get like those are still big names that people are aware of, but they're not aware of. They're not aware of anybody that played with them, right? Like so, where like Pele, people know who he played with.
I've listened to you and Al, and like Al had, like the American team from the 1950 or 1952, which won the World Cup when they beat England.
Yeah, 50.
And like mentioning all those players, and then the 1930 Uruguayans, which Al loves.
Oh, I love. And that's my favorite.
And mentioning all those names, I'm like, shit, I don't know. Yeah. Well, which I've now looked up and like, that's really cool. But for me, yeah, at least 58 before is kind of a little bit tricky. So then the problem I have, not the problem, is that in 20 years' time, when you'd be a little bit more mature than me and Al is a little bit more mature than you, right? But in 20 years' time, you think like, who is going to be buying, is Al still going to be buying cards? Are you still going to be buying cards? Like, who's the next generation that is, I'll be 52 in 20 years' time, turning 53. Am I still going to be buying cards? So Messi and Ronaldo, for like a huge generation, they are the two GOATs. And of course, they'll go down as like top 20 players of all time, right?
Oh, I think they're top 10 players all time.
Exactly, right? So they will probably command
top 5.
It's like, will Pele still be the Pele in 20 years' time? I mean, he's going to be, touch wood, he's still going to have a few years left in him. But I mean, when he's gone in 10 years' time, like, are his prices still going to be, will he still be Pele? If you know what I mean? Like, will those players still be those players? Like, how, when in 20 years' time, is the 20-something today, are they going to know who Kabale is? Are they going to know Di Stefano? Are they going to know Puskas? Are they going to know, and in some of their teammates?
Yeah, I mean, that's a legit question. And I think that that's something that, like, everything kind of rolls forward a little bit. Like, but when you look at other sports, everybody still knows who Ty Cobb is. Everybody, like in baseball, everybody knows who, Mickey Mantle is. Everybody knows who these guys are, and it's like, I think once these players are established and known as greats, they'll always be accepted as that. But will the interest be as great? I mean, we see in vintage baseball that it's not as great as it once was. Like, I mean, it's just, yeah, I mean, either people get priced out, so they start looking for, closer, more recent. But like, because soccer's so early, like I think it's hard to say, right? Because there's just so many people that are going to be coming into this that are going to have to look further back. Because if they want to get any vintage cards, like everybody's eating up in our group, they're eating up the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, So where are they going to have to go if they want to get vintage cards? They're going to start looking further back in history. And just the scarcity alone, like, I don't think there's any way that like that people aren't going to look further back because they're going to have to. Because you're not getting rid of your Pelés. I'm not getting rid of my Pelés, right? So where are they going to go? They're going to go, okay, well, who's the greats that are still not at that price? Like, I can go back to the 40s and see Valentino Mazzola was a huge name in Italy who, or the 30s, Stanley Matthews or somebody like that. And it's going to happen. Like, so, but yeah, you're right. In 20 years, are people going to be, I think that it's just going to be such a more mature base of collectors that I think 20 years, yes, I think that people will still care about those old players. 50 years from now, I don't know the answer to that. But because the fan base is growing so much that I just don't think that there's any way that they, if they want to get vintage cards, it's not going to cost them $500,000. They're going to have to, please let that be the case. I just don't see how people won't get interested further back because it'll be cheaper.
Although I've seen something happened to the lights yet. I have seen there was a lot of vintage cards you could buy for like literally nothing. And I have seen those cards kind of slowly disappearing or become more expensive. Like, $10 you could get a lot of random vintage cards, and those are now gone. Or even though I picked up today Stanley Matthews for $20, so there are still deals out there for sure.
Yeah.
But I do notice that they're becoming a little bit less, or the prices are becoming more expensive. I mean, everyone in the Discord is buying it, or everyone on Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had some 1932 Bulgaria Sport, so it's like a German card. I had a lot of them. I think about 200 of them, and I offered them up to the group. I said, anybody that wants to give me 50 cents a piece for the lot, they're yours. And nobody took them. I said, okay, I'll hold on to them. At some point they're going to be worth $2 a piece, you know, and now they're worth probably $5 a piece already. So it's like,
I must go. I have some of those too, because they did. They have like a huge set. It's a massive.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's good. That's good to know.
But the point being is, like we're seeing that, like the demand is just going to keep growing and growing. So those cards are going to be $20 a piece at some point. And
the one concern I have is that, I don't want to say the bad, like I don't want to jinx it,
Well, go ahead.
Everyone is mainly buying things because they believe it's going to go up in the future.
Sure.
And eventually, like, Ponzi schemes fail, pyramids fail when there's not enough people, you've to like add on to the pyramid, basically.
Sure.
And like, if you're buying a card for $5 and I'm selling it for 10 and then you sell it for 20, that's going to take a long while to reach a price, but like when it comes to like the Alifas or, the more of those high-end cards at the moment, like how high can they go? You know what I mean? Like,
well, yeah, that's a legit question.
Eventually we're going to reach a price point where it's like, shit, no one's going to, like.
Well, here's part of the answer is like, I don't think it's going down because like you got to take into account inflation and like the government's printing money like no tomorrow, right? Like,
come on, 1400.
Bring me that money. But like, there's so much money out there that's part of the reason that these prices have gone up. Like the US just, I don't know what the percentage is at 30, 40%. Like that's how much money they've just, like all of the money that they had produced, they've produced 40% more in the last year or something like that. So if you had something that was worth $10 and it's now worth 14, like that's just equal value. You know what I mean? So like part of that is built into the stock market right now. Part of that is built into card value.
But again, I do feel safer in vintage than modern. Like we have spoken about.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Because
like,
the scarcity is so.
Again, if anything's going to go tits up, will be the modern card market. And those people I still feel will get hurt the most because they're paying $30,000 for a Sancho card. Whereas again, if you're buying a Platini for $100, cool. It sucks to lose $100, but I'd rather lose $100 than lose $30K. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I feel like vintage won't. And look, again, I still think vintage is like antiques. It's like, artwork always appreciates. There will be ebbs and flows. Antiques, statues and random crap, right? Those always appreciate it. It might ebb and flow. But these vintage things are never gonna I feel like they're never gonna lose money. But it does make me nervous that we've had so much growth so quickly.
And that's natural because you're not having time to react to it, right? Yeah. Like it's so like it's such a huge material percentage increase in value. It's like, oh my God, like there's no way that it can keep going up. Well, it can, and it will. Like, I mean, I just don't see how it can't.
Again, if you look at soccer, we've had, I think, 5 players break the 100K mark. We've had Pele, and it's his key goal in the Liga. We've had Messi and Ronaldo. We've had Beckham now, which was that kind of sneaky bid. and we've had Maradona. Oh, Mbappe. I think Mbappe has Holland. So that we've had 6 players break the 100K mark. But I think for baseball, there's over 100 players that have cards that are worth over 100K.
And baseball's a dying sport.
Well, as you can see by the PSA Pop reports, they've lost 2% in the last of market share in the last 5 months.
See, that's why we have PJ on.
And whereas soccer, with the global sport, surely, you know, we can have way more. I mean, I don't know. Am I, you know, sometimes I honestly go to sleep like, wow, I'm going to be a millionaire. This is the easiest thing in the world. Sometimes I think like, shit, have I just bought a very expensive little pile of cardboard?
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's natural, right? Like you're going to be, there's risk. Anything that you have there's risk. Like, does collecting culture die with us?
Yeah.
Like maybe, but it's highly doubtful, right? Like, I mean, it's just like it's growing in many regions in the world. Like there's so many regions in the world that never had a collecting culture.
I think one of the best things to happen to the market was, or the industry, the hobby, was rally. And those like collectible, there's now like at least 4 or 5 companies that I can't recall.
Yeah, I don't remember them either.
Because they have, when I say, you know, you eventually you'll run out of people that can spend 100K on a card, or 50K, or even 200K, whatever. But if Rally are buying it because they know they can sell it tomorrow to 1,000 people, or, you know, 10,000 investors, that is great for the market.
Yeah, because then it doesn't price people out.
Exactly. And the more people, or the more companies that start like Rally, you know, there's only 4 American companies right now. The more companies that eventually something will happen in Europe, in the UK,
globally,
some of them might even be hedge funds dedicated to sports cards. And
I imagine we're going to see that within the next year. I think that some of these big prices we're seeing that aren't going, like the one of the cards that aren't quite rally level, I think we're seeing people buying them up to form funds. I have no doubt about that.
So that'd be awesome. Again, I don't know how, you know, I know Rally, of course, is, you know, the SEC regulated, and it's, you know, it's all legit. So I'm not sure how it would work with, you know, hedge funds. I'm sure it'll have to be, well, I guess like any other, you know, if a hedge fund is taking a risk buying stocks and options, you know, so art and things like that, I guess it would be classified as non-traditional
investments. Yeah. I mean, all of these things are positive signs for this industry, and like
2021 is going to be exciting. I mean, 2020 was exciting, even though I was only in it for half the year. Of course, with coronavirus, I mean, I think when we go back to live sport, like, you know, 50, 60,000 people watching sport events, a lot of people got into soccer recently because, well, they, you know, Americans, they weren't maybe too familiar with it. They were into basketball and baseball cards. They got into soccer cards, but they're not into soccer yet. When they can watch on TV, there's 100,000 people at a stadium, like
that, just that, the chills you can get from that.
I think also, like, I told my friends when I moved to America, like I was convinced that in the next 20 years, I said the US will win the World Cup, because there's such, you know, there's a growing league. The US has, like, I think the most kids, school-age kids, playing organized soccer out of any country in the world. There's something like 20 million school kids playing soccer in America, which is massive. You know, you got the academies, got everyone playing in Europe. So I was so disappointed when America didn't qualify for.
Well, yeah, you didn't take into account the level of the instruction that's being provided in the States. And that's growing as time goes on, but it's just a slower crawl than you probably anticipated.
Like when 2022, like the US is a pretty decent side at the moment, like a lot of youngsters. Like if they can have a run, well, first you got to qualify, but like if 2022 we can have a decent run, in 2026, like we should have a decent squad. I mean, if we
a lot of those guys will be hitting their prime at that point, so it'll be interesting. And just playing at home, it's going to give them some advantage.
The US can have a good push to 2026. Like, oh man, it would be.
Yeah, well, like I've talked about this on some shows that I've guested on and stuff. Like when I was younger, like the US had, is it Ernie Stewart, and he was like the only player from the US that played in Europe, and now like it was like, wow, he played, in Holland, like this is incredible. Like
it's more rare to find a national team player that plays in the MLS than plays in Europe. Basically, everyone's based in Europe. It's insane.
I think the U.S. probably has 100 players in Europe now.
Oh, I was looking at a list the other day. I think it might have been an ESPN, or goal.com, whatever it is, or ESPN FC. That like top 100 players playing abroad, and you might have heard of 20. There are so many, and a lot of guys are like under 18, like decent, like, oh my God, like the future is going to be insane. Like,
oh, that makes me so happy.
Yeah, I'm touch wood again. I don't want to jinx it, but like, man.
Well, just to like, I don't care to like be like a top 6 or 8 side. Like, give me like a consistent top, like, 16, and I'm content.
Yeah, I mean, if the US can make the top 16 in a World Cup consistently, like every World Cup cycle, that would be great. And every now and then, maybe a quarterfinal or a semifinal, that would be
better than Mexico. Like that, just be the best team in CONCACAF.
Yeah,
and
then like MLS, there's this whole thing about promotion and relegation. Like, if they can increase MLS to eventually you have MLS 1 and MLS 2. Cap it for like, even if they cap it for like 5 years or 8 years or maybe even 10 years. And then eventually you get like I know there's like an unofficial, the US, there's so many different acronyms for the league.
The USL.
If they can have unofficial Division 1, Division 2 becomes kind of official. I know the US is the geographic side of the United States. It's both its biggest friend and its biggest enemy. But like, if we can get a proper promotion and relegation going, like by the time 2026 comes, I
have a hard time believing that's ever going to happen in the States because there's just too many owners that aren't going to be willing to get their team relegated.
If you pay $150 million for an expansion fee, now it's probably even more. I know Austin, and is it St. Louis or St. Louis?
St. Louis.
Yeah, they have a team or going to have a team. Like, imagine paying $200 million for a franchise fee, and then like, in 2 years' time,
there's no way that like these guys who put in a shit ton of money,
they can lock in for a period of 10 years. I mean, if I was commissioner, this would be my plan. Sweet, make as much money as you can in those 10 years in TV rights and whatever, and then we can open it up and say, guys, cool.
I would love there to be relegation. I think that would be amazing. I think that would actually bring more interest to the sport over here because like soccer is just another sport that does the same thing here. It's the playoffs, half the league makes the playoffs. And I think you're going to have the playoffs because that's just how the United States
I do like
psyche is.
Well, I do like the American professional sports. Like, it's a very sustainable league where if you look at Europe and the FIFA financial fair play rule, that is a load of bullshit. Like that rule exists on paper, but so many football teams. I think Arsenal at the one stage was the only Premier League team that actually made profit for the year. £2 million. All, basically billionaires. It's just a pissing competition between billionaires.
Yeah.
Real Madrid and Barcelona get money from the government. So many clubs, it's just not sustainable. And in any free market, when you're paying these wages, which are just unfathomable, and like these transfer fees is just ridiculous. So like, I do like American sports, how you have the draft system and you have the salary cap, but to compete against, we're not on the same, firstly, if you come out of the college system in MLS, you're 21, right? 22.
Yeah.
By the time you're in Europe, you guys have been playing professionally since they were 16 or in academy, so you're already at a disadvantage. Then the starting salary is like $30K. Like, that is, for professional soccer, that's not going to cut it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that, that's the MLS has always had a good plan of just slowly but surely, and they'll change what they're doing over time. And I think they've done a good job of that. Like, they started with the academies here, and then you see a lot more players getting opportunities and then moving abroad because of that. And then you're also seeing a lot of kids from the States going to academies elsewhere.
Yeah.
And, it's soccer is starting to get ingrained in the fabric of America. Like, people don't want their kids to play football, American football, because of the, concussions. They want their kid to play something where they're not going to die, at 45 because they get hits to their head.
Well, it's weird. Like, so I live in Texas now. I live in 30 miles outside of Houston, and obviously Texas is football, American football country. And down the road from my house, there is a huge junior soccer complex, and it's actually one of the Houston Dynamo youth like regions or centers. And like every weekend, there's like so many kids playing, and like, yeah, soccer's a huge deal. Like, that's why I'm just so kind of pissed off that we didn't qualify for 2018. I felt like it was such a big, because the US always makes the World Cup.
Yeah, so, that was disgusting.
Yeah, embarrassing, not beating or not drawing with Jamaica, whatever it was, like ridiculous. But yeah, so I'm very hopeful, and that's why again with the World Cup hosting here, the US team, MLS growing, the hobby, like when you said if you look at it over as if you compare the hobby to a calendar, we say we are in January. Like, are we even in the first week of January? Like, come on.
I mean, like, yeah, I'm just being conservative and not saying like we're on January 3rd. Like, I think saying if we're February 1st right now, I think that's being pretty conservative. Like, I think we got to see, like, soccer is continually growing. 2026 isn't, like, it's going to be 50 years before soccer is probably at its maturity in the United States. Like, I mean, truly. So in 6 years, that's like a month.
Look from 1994 when the US hosted 1994 World Cup, there was no like MLS, right?
That was when MLS started. They jump started it because of the World Cup.
They used it as like a catalyst to join. So like it took the US in what's 94 to it's 26
years.
Oh my God, my 2 beers down. 26 years. Like that is, I mean, that's a long time to get to where they were. So like, I think now, like, surely it'll jumpstart things even more. Like, I mean, and then hopefully the promotions that they're doing in the build up to 2026, like Panini signing David Beckham. And if my biggest dream for the hobby is if Lionel Messi comes to MLS, specifically, I want him to come to Inter Miami with David Beckham. I mean, look, he'll go to New York as a, he's not going to
because the red city. Yeah,
he's not going to come from Barcelona and go to like Houston, for example.
Well, he's going to go to Man City right next year, and then he's going to go to New York, like because they'll still be under the same ownership.
Yeah, that would be amazing for like, oh my God, like that would be. And if like Messi comes to MLS, we've had Zlatan, and what really amuses me when Zlatan I watched a few of the Galaxy games, and when he came to MLS, everyone's like, oh no, he's done, he's old. And then he's like, I'm a top scorer for AC Milan. No, but no one says anything. Like, oh
yeah, well, it's like, oh well, it's because MLS is shit.
Yeah,
and then he goes and does the same thing in Italy. Yeah.
Like, if a higher profile player that like Messi can come, geez, that would just it would be so much more, not authenticity, but like stamp of approval for MLS. Like it should be, if you can't make it in the top 5 leagues in Europe, like the MLS,
that should be the next option.
It should be the 6th biggest league.
Yeah.
And like just with the amount of money that there's in American sports, like, it should be this. Why can't it be in MLS yet? Like I don't know. Like I'm very bullish on MLS.
100%, and I think that's a good goal for MLS is to be a top 10 league. Like
don't compete with Premier League, Serie A, the League One and Bundesliga. You don't have to do that. But like to be a top 10 league, or like the biggest outside of Europe.
Yeah.
The most prestigious league, like surely that could be.
Well, because and I think you're starting to see more players that are still in their prime coming to MLS that maybe would have played at a smaller team in Europe, but now they're choosing to come to MLS. Like maybe it's because they're getting paid more. I don't know, but at least something's happening where the league's more aggressive in getting players that aren't 36 to join. The international players, and the players are more receptive to coming to the US. I mean, the US is an attractive place for somebody to come play, so like, I mean, that's a positive. And, you're not at this point, you can walk down the street and not be recognized.
True, exactly.
So like, that's attractive for somebody who can't go to a restaurant in their hometown without being bothered by 40 people.
Like what's also interesting is like Atlanta United, who are now probably in their third season. I mean, Atlanta and Georgia, again, is American football country, right?
Oh yeah.
You would have, I mean, I'm sure growing up, you would have never thought like, okay, wow, there's going to be a franchise, MLS franchise in Atlanta. They share the stadium with the Falcons, the NFL. They have, I think, their biggest attendance in MLS. Like they are regularly getting over 50,000 people in the South. That is incredible. So when I first moved to America, I was actually living in Atlanta. I lived there for 9 months, and that was during the 2014 World Cup. That's when I was still very much into current soccer. And I watched the USA Portugal. That game was on a Saturday, or it was like Saturday lunchtime for us or whatever. No, wait, that was Brazil, right? Yeah, so it was like Saturday afternoon, and USA Portugal. We watched it in a park on a big screen. There was 15,000 people there. It was like the biggest party. And I met someone in a bar, and they told me they watched another game in Birmingham, Alabama. Which is American football. That's the deep South. Soccer doesn't exist. So there was 10,000 people in a public square watching soccer, like World Cup. Like that just to me shows like,
yeah, again, the growth is incredible.
And again, it showed me just wow, in 2018, it feels like we were growing. Didn't qualify for the World Cup. Now we've that was such.
And that happened, but like I think, yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, you and I are just gonna get giddy about this, and it's like
that's another topic. That's another.
It's just exciting. We're so early. Like I'm just gonna keep saying that, and sorry to the 11 viewers that are still sticking with us, because all we're doing is trying to convince ourselves that shit's good.
Even though we're still early, don't sell your house.
Nope. Don't mortgage your house to buy cards.
Don't cash out. Don't sell your car. If you know what I mean. Don't like put your kids like with any investment. Never go. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. That's like
exactly
101. Always, and again, don't put 100% of your money into one player like Ansu Fati. Put a little bit into vintage if you want. A little bit into modern. A little bit into Pele. A little bit into Maradona.
I gotta go for a second.
No worries. Well,
I'll be back.
What else do you want to talk about?
Or are we done? I'll be back in like a minute.
All right, cool. You're gonna have a quick week. Guys, so yeah, just a quick one. Investing while we wait for Bull to get back. Yeah, again, I'm not a financial advisor, so I take everything I say with a pinch of salt. But never put 100% of your money into one investment, whether it's Bitcoin, the stock market, your 401k, real estate. Always try have a balanced portfolio. And even if you do have a lot of money in cards, of that percent or that 100% that you have in cards, have a little bit in vintage, a little bit in modern if you want. If you're comfortable with Ronaldo, put money in Ronaldo, but put money in Ronaldo, Pele, Messi, Maradona, etc. And believe it or not, I have kind of run out of things that I want to talk about. So let's wait for Bull to get back. I think he's just draining the snake. What can I show you? One Sebastian Veron, 1996. Ronaldo, Monte Cromo, 2003. Oh, Bull is back.
Hey.
I kind of run out of things to talk about.
Oh, gotcha. So you're just showing cards?
Yeah.
It's like show and tell. Let's see. Jude Bellingham.
Very nice. Hopefully you can pay more than $3 for that.
$10.
At the tops now. Well, look at this. You know how I'm all in. I'm all into vintage, but look at this.
Oh yeah, I got one of those too.
I have 20.
Oh, I didn't buy 20.
It was like $3 each of that price, which I thought, okay, worst case scenario, I would get my money back. That's MLS? I can't really see that.
Caden Clark. He scored a couple goals like when he was started and hasn't done shit since. But yeah, I think we're just grasping at straws now. So it's starting to get obscure for cards right now, according to the banner. But PJ, totally appreciate you joining me, man. This was a marathon for sure. We have 2 hours 45 minutes, so it's been a blast. So I appreciate you making the time.
Apologies to everyone still listening to me.
They're still here though, so thank you guys for sticking with us. And you know, like we apparently weren't that boring. So you know, thanks again, PJ. Yeah. Everybody follow PJ on Instagram at 2026wcInvestor.
If you really want to be bored to death, follow me. But seriously, thanks for having me on. I do appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I feel quite honored because I know the last guest I think was Al or Al's.
Well, Al and I like share, you know, so like we do shows all the time. So
yeah, so I feel like no pressure on me when you asked me. I was like, oh shit, why does?
Oh no, yeah, this is like I love these ones because it's like, you know, rather than we just kind of talk, you know, it's just like having a conversation, you know, shooting the shit kind of thing. So I appreciate you coming up with all the topics. So
no worries. Like I said, I can, yeah, I got
we got more.
Don't get me started talking.
So, all right, we're going to end this. We'll see you guys on the Discord. If you are not a member of the Discord, there's a link down below, and just so many awesome people in there. So if you have any interest in vintage soccer, you know, join that Discord and, you know, ask questions. People will be happy to answer. And have a good weekend, everyone.